Good evening, Rockville. Today is May 20th, and we will convene meeting number 12-24. The first part of this meeting will be a closed session, and we are meeting in closed session to obtain legal advice under Article 3305B. May I have a motion to move into closed session?
So move.
Second.
Thank you very much, colleagues. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, it is unanimous. We'll be back. Good evening, Rockville. Today is May 20th, 2024, and we will begin meeting number 12-24. Today we are joined by a very, very special guest. Her name is Callie Walker, and she is the winner of If I Were Mayor contest. Can we give a round of applause and welcome Callie? I had a chance to visit fourth grade classes all across the city, and I remember going to visit Callie Walker, who really stood out, and she wrote an incredible essay that we'll be able to hear this evening. But she's also going to lead us in some portions of our meeting today, and we're so excited to have you. She'll start with a Pledge of Allegiance, and then she's actually going to read the essay that she submitted. Okay, you ready? All right, let's stand.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so I'm going to go down there. You're going to do your essay, okay? Come on.
For the homeless. Next, I would make the inside look like a home by adding a fridge with food and drinks, a television with a heater and / cooling machine. Finally, we would go out and invite the homeless and displaced people to our mini house. We would build a community to protect them from the outdoors and provide services to help them find jobs. To keep people safe, I would change the speed limit by schools, neighborhood, and churches.
Callie, that was incredible. You were so thoughtful, thinking about pedestrian safety to people who are unhoused, thinking about equity. We're so proud of you, and as well as thinking about a green Rockville. So very nice. I did hear that there's an audio issue, so I'm going to just take a quick pause and have you sit at the dais, and then we're going to figure out our audio issue. Actually, that's a good idea.
Go ahead and take
All right.
pictures now. Great. Tell me to put up a full screen, please.
Thank you. But we're going to do it after we do agenda review and the city manager's report during our proclamations. All right. Thank you for your patience. And you did a fantastic job. So good we need you to do it again. We all want to make sure the whole city hears it. Okay. All right. So let's go to agenda review. Ms. Sarah Taylor Farrell, do you have any changes to report?
Madam Mayor and council members, there were several changes to the agenda tonight since Friday. We issued the closed session citation that was this evening at 6 p.m. with the subject. There are 2 proclamations, F and G added, a consent item C for those who are viewing online, and the agenda has been updated online and posted, and hard copies are available at the back of the room. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions about agenda review? I sent some notes to our team. Dr. Miles.
Madam Mayor, thank you. For those standing in the back, there are a few seats up front if y'all want to sit down.
And we don't bite.
Yeah, we took showers and we don't bite.
And I will just note that there's the bus for the summer after-school program that was added, I think, on Thursday. So I just want to flag that when we get to consent agenda. All right. You have something you want to say?
City Manager, can we hear your report?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Madam Mayors and council members. The City of Rockville joins the American Public Works Association to celebrate National Public Works Week this week. All are invited to attend the ever-popular annual equipment show this Thursday, May 23rd, from 10:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at Maddie Stefanik Park. The free show includes demonstrations, balloons, popcorn giveaways, and a chance to meet Public Works employees who keep Rockville running. It features exhibits on recycling and trash, the city's water treatment plant, water and sewer operations, environmental and stormwater management. And mark your calendar for Hometown Holidays Music Fest next Saturday and Sunday at Redgate Park in Arboretum, 12 noon to 7 p.m. each day. The free festival features 2 stages of music, food vendors, kids' activities, family yard games, beverage booths, and more. Bring a blanket or lawn chair and enjoy live music, food, and beverages to kick off your summer while enjoying the beautiful landscape of Redgate Park in Arboretum. Parking is free on site, including ample bike parking, and a free shuttle will run every 20 minutes from Rockville Town Center. For more details, visit rockvillehth.com. To cap off the holiday weekend, Monday, a week from today, will be the Memorial Day Ceremony and Parade in Town Center from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Please visit the city's website for the scheduled events, parade route, and city office closures information for Memorial Day. As the Maryland General Assembly session concluded in April, bill signings have resulted in more advances for Rockville priorities. We supported 2 bills that won approval as part of Governor Westmore's affordable housing legislative package. One creates a state entity to provide financial assistance for redevelopment and investment in low-income communities, and another creates an office to educate and advocate for renters, establishing a tenant's bill of rights and provisions to protect renters from certain evictions and to limit the cost of security deposits. Lawmakers also approved $250,000 for the David Skull Park Improvements Project, which will include Americans with Disabilities Act-related enhancements, a new pavilion, the removal of a storage building, stone pipe renovation, and ornamental fencing. In another win for Rockville, lawmakers approved a 2-year pilot program for Montgomery and Prince George's counties to use noise abatement monitoring systems to help crack down on excessive noise from motor vehicles. The systems measure sound levels and take photos or videos of a vehicle's license plate when a violation occurs, producing a citation that can be issued to the vehicle owner. This is an important step ahead to help solve a persistent problem. Finally, tonight, we are celebrating an incredible milestone of 50 years of dedication and commitment to serving the city of Rockville. Rockville senior staff member Fran Jablonski is here with us. Fran, will you please stand? Fran's remarkable record of 50 years of service shows loyalty and hard work that have been instrumental in shaping our workplace culture and success. Her dedication and invaluable contributions over the past 5 decades have cultivating a welcoming environment, especially for our senior residents and our fellow staff. She found her home at the Rockville Senior Center, helping countless seniors and community members over the years. Fran, please accept our sincere thanks for your long-standing service and all you have contributed to the city of Rockville. Congratulations, Fran. Madam Mayor, this concludes my report for this evening.
Fran, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know I speak on behalf of all of us. You have made Rockville a better place and dedicated your life to this place, and we really appreciate every year, every minute, every hour you have made our city better. We appreciate you.
Colleagues, do you have any questions?
Well done. I had two things. One is definitely want to encourage everyone to come out to Hometown Holidays and to our Memorial Day Parade. Please check out the website. I wanted to note that Congressman Raskin has dedicated our parade as a local hero and did a brief interview with us, our city, today that will air on Friday. We'll talk about the history of the Memorial Day Parade with the Wood family and their contributions to our parade. But it's a big deal to be spotlighted, and we so appreciate Congressman Raskin. I also just wanted to note that the Solar Switch co-op is going on right now. The Environmental Commission would really love us to continue to get more people to consider signing up for solar. It is something that can help you reduce your costs and also help us towards our climate action plan. We're trying to get about 200 to 300 new homes every year. So please check that out, and we really appreciate everyone who's done it so far. Thank you for the report. We'll now move to proclamations and recognitions, and due to an audio issue, we'd like to have Callie read her essay again. Is that okay? All right, thank you. Let's go. We're all gonna go. Yeah, let's go. All right, thank you, Mayor Walker.
My name is Callie Walker, and I go to St. Mary's School. My teacher is Mrs. O'Hanlon. If I were mayor, I would inspire leadership by creating teams of volunteers and friends, sending them out to the community to meet with the people to discuss green space and the problems of the city. My first team will go pick up trash and recycle. We want the community and the earth to be healthy. My second team will go meet with the parents and kids to build activities and spaces for playing at neighborhood parks for free. My third team will go out and build gardens. The gardens will have carrots, green beans, greens, tomatoes, strawberries, and blueberries. At harvest, we will pass them out to the people in our community. The final team will go out and ask more questions and listen to the community to plan a new project. With their voice, we can work together to fix problems. I would like to do a project to help the homeless or displaced people. This could be a model that other cities and towns could use. First, I would build mini houses to provide shelter for the homeless. I would buy woodsheds and change them into mini houses. My goal is to start with 50 homes for the homeless. Next, I would make the inside look like a home by adding a small bed, a little fridge with food and drinks, a television, and a heater/cooling machine. Finally, we would go out and invite the homeless and displaced people to our mini house. We would build a community to protect them from the outdoors and provide services to help them find jobs. To keep people safe, I would change the speed limit by schools, neighborhoods, and churches.
Thank you, Mayor Walker. I know that St. Mary's is very proud, but we are proud of you too. And we want to give you a certificate. Mayor Walker had a chance to go to Annapolis and get a certificate directly from Governor Moore. Is that right? Yes, and she joined some other mini mayors across the state and represented us very, very well, I might add. So on behalf of the mayor and council of the city of Rockville, this is a certificate of recognition presented to Callie Walker from St. Mary's School. She is the winner of Rockville's If Our Mayor contest and mayor for the day, May 23rd, 2024. She's going to be getting a tour of our city. We're going to go to lunch together. She'll also come to our Memorial Day parade. So please come out and join us. And Callie, you have incredible ideas. Thank you. Just do one more. And I know we have proud parents. Do you want to come and take a picture with Mayor Walker?
Is her teacher here? Is her teacher here? Do you want to take a picture with them? All right. Now we'll be moving on to the rest of our recognitions. We have a few today. I won't read everything. We'll try to abbreviate this a little bit. In the month of June, we'll be celebrating Caribbean American Heritage Month. This is very personal to me. I have family from the region, and I know that many people in Rockville are also from this region. Whereas the commemoration of Caribbean American Heritage Month was initiated in 2004 by Ms. Claire Nelson, Ph.D., and adopted by the U.S. House of Representatives to recognize the significance of Caribbean people and their descendants on the history and culture of the United States. Whereas during Caribbean American Heritage Month, we recognize and acknowledge Americans with roots in the Caribbean that have shaped our culture and heritage, greatly enriching our society as scholars, business leaders, authors, community leaders, inventors, and activists. Some notable leaders include Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of Treasury, former Secretary of State Colin Powell, Celia Cruz, the world-renowned salsa music pioneer, Shirley Chisholm, the first African-American Congresswoman, Academy Award-winning actor Sidney Poitier, and the Harlem Renaissance poet James Weldon Johnson, author of Lift Every Voice and Sing. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Rockville do hereby proclaim June 2024 as Caribbean American Heritage Month in the City of Rockville and urge all the residents of our city to honor these cultural and historical bonds and be reminded that America's greatness lies in our diversity. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Okay, we're doing a little switch up. Today we are commemorating a Independence Day, Etrian Independence Day, and it's important for certain countries throughout the world for us to recognize the independence and the struggle that they went through, especially for those members of the community here in Rockville who are part of that community far away. Whereas Eritrea is a country that lies on the west coast of the Red Sea in the Horn of Africa, inhabited by a mosaic of 9 ethnic communities. And now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Rockville, Maryland, hereby proclaim May 24th, 2024 as Etrian Independence Day in Rockville, and acknowledge the heroic determination of the Etrian people to live in peace and independence as sovereign people. Madam Mayor, I now move for the proclamation.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. That was Councilmember Shaw. who seconded.
Good evening, everybody. It is fortuitous that this month is Historic Preservation Month, and I'm going to be giving that proclamation today. Whereas May is designated as Preservation Month by the National Trust for Historic Preservation, this year's theme, People Saving Places, is a national effort to recognize the individuals and the organizations that pour their time, energy, and resources into protecting places and inspire others to do the same. And whereas historic preservation helps strengthen and foster communities, rejuvenate neighborhoods, protect natural and cultural resources, and encourage local pride. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of Rockville, Maryland, recognizing the efforts of historic preservation that they enrich our present and enhance our future, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Preservation Month and call upon the community of Rockville to enjoy our historic homes, sites, and landscapes. I move the proclamation.
All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. It is unanimous.
Do we have anybody to accept? Sheila, please. Do you want to say a few words at all? Go for it. Whatever you'd like to say.
Okay, just thank you very much. This is something that we do each month. I noticed that Nancy Picard is here from Peerless Rockville, if you'd like to step up here as well and say a few words. But just thank you very much. And since I'm here, I'd like to tell you that on May 30th, the Historic District Commission will be holding a workshop called the ABCs of Historic Preservation. We will have special guests. This will be our Thursday night. The 30th is Thursday night, and it'll be actually hybrid. It'll be here in this room and also online, so you can register if you'd like to. You can find it online where to register. But we will have speakers from Montgomery County. We'll have speakers from Maryland Historical Trust to talk about the economic value of historic preservation and to just give you a background and to give you a chance to get to know our historic district commissioners. So we hope that you will join us, and we hope that you will join us as well. So thank you very much.
All right. Rockville has a long history, dating back before the Revolution, actually. And so little of it still remains that we try to preserve what's left to remind us all of this history. And that's pretty much what the Historic District Commission does. As Sheila just said, I hope you will come out to find out more about historic preservation, the responsibilities, the benefits, and so on, and help keep our heritage alive. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad I pushed you forward a little bit. Michael Goldfinger is one of the Historic District Commissioners for the city, and he and his colleagues work every month in the city to make sure that they're available to review properties, weigh in, weigh the characteristics, look at the policies, look at the procedures, and make informed decisions. Each one of them apply, and they're evaluated based on criteria and experiences that they have that make them kind of really the Rockville experts on reviewing the properties. So thank you for what you do. And they couldn't do that without Sheila. So Sheila, we thank you so much every day for what you do. I'm with Peerless Rockville. My name's Nancy Picard. And we are thrilled when we get a chance to work with the city on great projects. So more to come, I guess. Thank you.
I was also going to just acknowledge that Peerless is turning 50 this year. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Should we take a quick picture? No, take your time. Now you got to put your smiling face on Mr. Hoffman.
Where do you want me?
How about we, Mademoiselle Mayor, you want to?
No, you can't get behind me.
We're going to go sideways like we're all going to prom. And then can we swing you guys right here? Swing it around. You shape me. It'll look better. Alrighty, 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you.
So we have the privilege of presenting the proclamation for American Jewish Heritage Month. This is very important, and special to me, aside from being currently a member of the Jewish community here in Rockville. I also began as a member of the Jewish community in Rockville back in 1976, just a few months after I was born. This proclamation, which hasn't always been a proclamation in Rockville. It's kind of a new thing, and Barry's going to talk a little bit about that. But it's something that's important. We live in a society today where people don't always understand different cultures. And the more we understand each other's cultures, the more we learn about them, the more we can prevent some of the divisive views and divisive spirits that comes about. And I'm honored to be here with Barry Jackson. Even before he was a council member, Barry Jackson was a strong advocate for the Jewish community in Rockville. And so I'm honored to be here to present this proclamation with Barry.
Thank you, Councilmember Van Grack. And I just want to say, I asked him. It was my turn, and I said, hey, why don't you join me? So just setting the record straight. But no, May is Jewish American Heritage Month with the Library of Congress, National Archives and Record Administration, National Endowment for the Humanities, National Gallery of Art, National Park Service, and the United States Holocaust Museum join in paying tribute to the generations of Jewish Americans who helped form the fabric of American history, culture, and society. The American Jewish Committee, a nonpartisan global advocacy organization for Jewish people, requested that Jewish American Heritage Month be celebrated in Rockville, Maryland during the month of May, and I'm happy that it is. The American Jewish Community was founded in 1654 by a group of 23 Jews, men, women, and children, fleeing persecution in Recife, Brazil. Over the past 369 years, Jewish Americans have lived in this country as loyal and patriotic citizens. The Jewish community has contributed to sharing its culture and values in all sectors of American society. The need for religious and cultural tolerance is paramount in these times of rising anti-Semitism. Tolerance towards all the different cultures here in America is necessary and needed. And with that, we're going to read the proclamation.
Whereas American Jewish history commenced in 1492 with the expulsion of Jews from Spain, and this action set off a period of intense Jewish migration. And whereas May 2024 is Jewish American Heritage Month, and
whereas during May 2024, hundreds of organizations and Americans of all backgrounds are joining together to discover, explore, and celebrate the vibrant and varied American Jewish experience from the dawn of our nation to the present day. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Rockville, Maryland, hereby proclaim May 2024 as Jewish American Heritage Month in Rockville, and urge residents to celebrate the rich culture of their Jewish American neighbors, friends, and colleagues, embrace diversity, and practice support for for one another and reflect on the need for respect for all people. And with that, Madam Mayor, I move the proclamation.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
It was unanimous. Thank you. Are you? No.
Oh,
I'll do next. Okay.
Good evening. This is probably one of my favorite topics, particularly as a city council member. I get a lot of credit for stuff that gets fixed in the city that I have no control over. A lot of it has to do with the Department of Public Works, who's day in, day out, after hours, holidays, they take no breaks. It kind of reminds me of residency in med school. But they provide much needed services, from fixing water mains that are broken to fixing potholes. As unsexy as that sounds, I mean, it's life-saving. And for the sidewalk repairs that keep some of our seniors from tripping and falling, as well as others. So I'm really thankful to be able to read this proclamation. I'll get to the point. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our residents' everyday lives. And now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of Rockville, Maryland, do hereby proclaim the week of May 20th through 24th, 2024 as National Public Works Week in the city of Rockville, and call upon all residents and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing public works services, and to recognize the contributions that public works employees make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. With that, Madam Mayor, I move the proclamation.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
All right. Saw Mr. Woods here. Oh, there he is. Can't miss him. You want to say a few words, sir? Sure. Thank you. And congrats. Thank you.
good evening. My name is Jim Woods. I'm the Acting Director of Public Works. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to say a few words. Every year, our department celebrates National Public Works Week. It gives us an opportunity to recognize the men and women of our department who provide services to the community on a daily basis, and they're really, really proud of that. Every year, the National Public Works Week has a theme, and this year's theme is Advancing the Quality of Life for All. And I really want to emphasize for all, because obviously we are providing services to the entire community, but we really take great pride and great effort to ensure that our services are provided equitably, and that our efforts are done in a manner that make our city more accessible for all members of our community. And so for that, we're really proud, and we recognize our employees for doing so. So I want to invite you all. Acting City Manager Mr. Simino already mentioned it, but we have our annual equipment show on Thursday, May 23rd from 10:30 to 4:30 at Matty Stepanek Park. It's a great opportunity not just to see some trucks and climb on some really cool equipment, but also to meet the men and women of our department who are really proud of providing these services to you, and really get a great opportunity to interact with the community in an informal basis. So please join us. And we're really hopeful that the rain holds off. But if there's one thing that our department can manage, it's a little bit of bad weather. So we'll be okay. So thank you all, and appreciate it.
Good evening, everyone. It's my honor to read this proclamation. Whereas April is National Arab American Heritage Month, and the theme is celebrating Arab American resilience and diversity. And whereas Congresswoman Debbie Dingell of Michigan, with help of several Arab American organizing groups, issued a resolution in 2017 recognizing April as National Arab American Heritage Month. And whereas there are more than 3.5 million Arab Americans that live in the United States who trace their ancestry to over 22 countries from North Africa and the Arabian Gulf, and places including Egypt, Iraq, Lebanon, Morocco, Palestine, Sudan, and others. Whereas the number of Marylanders of Arab ancestry more than doubled since the census first measured ethnic origins in 1908. Whereas Arab Americans take an active role within the Rockville community, and April helps to spotlight and allow them to celebrate this connection in a way that brings together places that represent home, heritage, and community. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of Rockville do proclaim April 2024 as National Arab American Heritage Month in Rockville, Maryland, and encourage all residents to acknowledge, embrace, and celebrate. I move the proclamation.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
I'm extremely emotional reading this next one. It appears from all my research that Rockville will be the first of anything, city, county, to pass and move a proclamation recognizing the Greek genocide. I am the descendant of people who survived the Greek genocide and people who did not. And this is this is without measure extremely personal to me, but I'm very proud that we are able to do this. Whereas the city of Rockville is home to many diverse ethnic and religious communities who came to the United States seeking refuge from war, ethnic and religious persecution, and whereas the genocide of the Anatolian Greeks is a tragedy that took the lives of an estimated 900,000 Greeks during World War I and is noted by scholars as the model used by the Nazis for the Holocaust. And whereas these Greeks, whose ancestors had lived in communities in Turkey for 3 millennia, were singled out by the Turkish authorities for expulsion, along with the Armenians, Assyrians, Circassians, Georgians, Jews, Kurds, Laz, and Zazas people from 1915 to 1923. And whereas Anatolian Greeks endured immeasurable cruelty during a Turkish government-sanctioned campaign to displace them, including massacres, forced deportations involving death marches through the Syrian desert, expulsions, summary executions, and the destruction of Eastern Orthodox cultural, historical, and religious monuments. And whereas Henry Morgenthau, the United States ambassador to the Ottoman Empire from 1913 to 1916, accused the Turkish government of a campaign of outrageous terrorizing, cruel torturing, driving of women into harems, debauchery of innocent girls, the sale of many of them at 80 cents each, the murdering of hundreds of thousands, and the deportation to and starvation in the desert of other hundreds of thousands, and the destruction of hundreds of villages and many cities, all part of the willful execution of a scheme to annihilate the Armenian, Greek, and Syrian Christians of Turkey. And whereas the Turkish perpetrators of genocide in Asia Minor were notably brutal when executing their campaign to displace Greeks from their ancestral land, the former's attack on the latter was widely noticed but largely unchecked by the global community. And whereas those who survived were exiled from Turkey, and today their descendants live throughout the Greek diaspora, including here in Rockville. And whereas acknowledgement and awareness of the Greek genocide will not only teach future generations, but will also help prevent such atrocities from being repeated. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Rockville do proclaim May 19th, 2024, as Greek Genocide Remembrance Day in the city of Rockville, Maryland, and encourage everyone to join with the Greek American community and as many religious, communal, and philanthropic organizations as they honor the sacrifices and memory of their ancestors. Madam Mayor, I move the proclamation.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye. And I have someone to accept it as well. If you come on up, I appreciate it. If you want to say a few words, of course.
If you don't mind.
Of course.
Thank you very much, everyone. This was quite emotional for me as well. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, I want to thank you. My name is Giorgio Komninos. I sit on the board of an international nonprofit organization called the Order of AHEPA, the American Hellenic Educational Progressive Association. And we are a nonprofit organization. We were established in 1922 in Atlanta, Georgia, to protect Greek immigrants from attacks at the hands of the Ku Klux Klan. Today, we are proud to serve as a community service organization which promotes the Hellenic ideals born in ancient Greece and which form the core of Western civilization, including civic responsibility, education, philanthropy. Every year, we are proud to donate over $2 million in scholarship. It's just part of what we do. And $50,000 of that money is donated right here to students in Rockville at a ceremony at the Hilton across the street. Today, as we stand here in the heart of Rockville, we are united not only by our presence, but also by our solemn respect for history and our shared commitment to the principles of justice and remembrance. Firstly, I would like to extend, on behalf of myself and Savas Civicos, the president of the organization, our deepest gratitude to the city of Rockville for passing this important proclamation recognizing the Greek genocide. This gesture is a significant acknowledgement of the suffering endured by the Greek population under the Ottoman Empire during and after World War I. It's a step towards healing and understanding, not only for Greeks around the world, but for all who value human rights and historical truth. The proclamation passed by the City Council does more than just recognize a tragic past. It reaffirms our collective commitment to preventing such atrocities in the future. It serves as a reminder that we as a community and as part of the global society have a duty to remember and learn from history. By acknowledging the Greek genocide, we honor the memory of those who suffered and perished. And we also strengthen our resolve to fight against persecution and to uphold the dignity of every human being. To the members of the Greek community, both here in Rockville and around the world, this proclamation is a symbol of solidarity. It's an affirmation that our history is remembered, that our losses are acknowledged, and that our resilience is admired. This proclamation will help us heal, especially for those of us like Councilwoman Marissa Valeri, whose ancestors suffered as a result of the Ottoman Turkish genocide of the Greek people. And I would also be remiss if I didn't note for the record the fact that there is sadly an active effort on the part of the current Turkish government to suppress this acknowledgement. That is perhaps the reason why many are still unaware of the Greek genocide. And I must also note that this year the Greek community commemorates the 50-year anniversary of the illegal Turkish invasion and occupation of the Republic of Cyprus, driven by a continued goal of ethnic cleansing of Greeks and Christians. In closing, I'm reminded of a quote by George Santayana, who said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Today, with this proclamation, the city of Rockville shows that it is not just a place of thriving diversity and progress, but also a beacon of remembrance and moral courage. Thank you once again, Madams Mayor and the young mayor, and to all of you for standing together in the name of truth and memory. Let us continue to build a community that looks back with wisdom and moves forward with hope. Thank you all so much.
Mayor Walker does have school tomorrow, so she'll be leaving us, but I just wanted to say thank you for helping us to lead our meeting today. And we wish you all the best, and I'll see you on Thursday. All right.
Thank you, Mademoiselle Mary.
Can we just move this down? Just take six down. Thank you. While we are moving, we want to open the floor for community forum. There are some folks who have signed up in advance, and a few have signed up here. Thank you. Give that to her. Thank you. Yes. All right. So first, we're going to welcome Marianne Susanti, who's going to be speaking about rent stabilization.
Good evening. My name is Marianne Susanti Fallingstead. I've lived at 1622 Grunther Avenue in the Twin Brook Forest section of Rockville for 38 years, and I'm here to support rent stabilization. I vote in every election and primary after educating myself on the issues. I've been a homeowner since 1975 after renting apartments for only 3 years. I benefited from financial opportunities not available to young adults now. First of all, I had student loans when education was more affordable, loans and interest rates lower, and making it easier to save enough to buy a home. And I bought my first home in Waldorf and my current Rockville home when prices were not inflated as they are now. In my Twin Brook neighborhood, I've seen homes flipped over the years on a regular basis, artificially inflating prices. Many times homes were bought intentionally to sell at a higher price in a couple years. Now these homes, which were definitely ideal and meant for young families, are priced way too high for them to afford. My home, which was priced higher than others in the area in 1986 at $96,000, now is estimated at more than 5 times that, close to or well over $500,000. Well, meanwhile, the Consumer Price Index says it should be only about 3 times that, or $275,000. Of course, those inflated prices also mean rents are also unreasonably high, further making it impossible to save enough to buy. And it would not be surprising if owners of apartment buildings, particularly the less scrupulous ones, engage in some of the same tactics that home flippers did. I easily found a web article on what to do to flip an apartment building. Meanwhile, my costs have stayed way down because of the stability of a fixed mortgage. My refinanced mortgage is almost done, and I've accrued lots of home equity, not debt. Yet renters just see the cost of living go up and up in all areas with no relief in sight. In order for young adults to be able to follow the route I was allowed to tread, it must start with rent stabilization that will allow them to get from under their debts and to save for the future. And rent stabilization doesn't just provide a safety net for renters. It also provides more affordable choices to the about 26% of cost-burdened homeowners who want to stay in Rockville. And all this is without even going into racial inequities in housing and home equity. Please take the steps to put rent stabilization in Rockville in effect as soon as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Welcome Amanda Stewart of the Joint Cairo Rockville.
So hi, everyone.
You have 30 minutes.
I promise I won't be 3 minutes, probably 30 seconds. So I am here from the Joint Chiropractic. We have a location right down 10 minutes down the road on Darnestown Road. We are actively trying to get engaged in our community and just let everyone know that we are available for you all to come and visit. So I did write something down because I'm not a public speaking fan. I'm very much not shy, but this is not my thing. So again, I'm Amanda Stewart, and I'm here representing the Joint Chiropractic, conveniently located 10 minutes away at Trevilla Square, adjacent to Trader Joe's. Our mission at the Joint Chiropractic is to improve the quality of lives for Rockville residents through routine and affordable chiropractic care. We're committed to supporting the health and wellness of our community and would love to follow up with the mayor and the council members to offer support to your health and wellness efforts to the community. Lastly, I'm here to personally invite you guys to stop by our walk-in clinic anytime and no appointments needed. And I brought some $19 first time visit coupons. Usually the first time visit is $29, so it's $10 off. So if you guys are interested, I'd love for you guys to come out. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That exhausts the list of those who have signed up in advance of a community forum. Is there anyone else who'd like to join? Okay. Thank you to, oh, please feel free to come forward. Please state your name.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Michael Donahue, and my wife and I have lived in Rockville for 43 years, the last 22 in the West End neighborhood. Throughout my 40-year professional career, I've been deeply committed to public safety. Over half of that time was dedicated to working in federal and local public safety and law enforcement agencies, including the United States Department of Justice, the United States Department of Homeland Security, and I also had the privilege of serving as a Rockville City police officer under Chief Treshik's tenure. For the past 10 years prior to my retirement, I worked as a police planner for the Montgomery County Police Department's Policy and Planning Division in the United States Park Police Office of Professional Responsibility, where I served as a subject matter expert in policing practices, police use of force, policy development, research, data analysis, workload and staffing assessments, compliance audits, and strategic planning. In January 2022, I was appointed to the City of Rockville Community Policing Advisory Board. My hope was to contribute my knowledge and experience to assist the board in fulfilling its mission, and I attended every board meeting except for 2, which I was unable to attend due to medical reasons. Unfortunately, I recently resigned from the board due to personal commitments and circumstances that I believed would impede my ability to continue actively participating in the board's work. It has been 39 months since the Community Policing Advisory Board was first established, and it has yet to put forth a single recommendation to enhance community policing efforts for the benefit of the residents of the City of Rockville. I know from speaking with other board members that this lack of progress and action was one of the reasons that caused them to resign their positions on the board. In October 2023, I authored a work plan to provide clear direction and focus for the board's efforts to fulfill its mission. Although the board generally agreed to the plan in principle, it was never formally adopted for reasons unknown and has since been abandoned. Nevertheless, I took my responsibility for working on the first 2 components of that plan with the goal of helping the board meet its mandate. My efforts involved a 28-month independent research project that consumed over 400 hours of my spare time. That consists of reviewing all of the department's 132 general orders and performing an analysis of numerous community policing-related policies, procedures, best practices that also included my independent analysis, opinion, and insights. This evening, I'm presenting the Mayor and Council with a brief summary of the outcome of that effort, which was an in-depth community policing program evaluation that I shared with all of you by email prior to attending tonight's meeting. This work product has not been reviewed, discussed, or endorsed by the Community Policing Advisory Board. The following is just a small snapshot of some of the over 20 key findings that are outlined in that evaluation. Approximately 75% of the department's general orders are 11 years or older, which may or may not still reflect current operations, and if they don't, they may actually be rendered unenforceable. Only 25% actually show any revision dates since they were initially issued.
Thank you. If you could please wrap up.
Sure, thank you very much. In closing, I would like to urge the Mayor and Council to ensure that it has all of its available information from the department, insist on transparency, and make sure that before you approve the expenditure of any taxpayer funds, that all of the information that is supported and referenced in my evaluation is at least asked for, because it's very important for you to be informed as much as the police department is. Thank you very much.
We appreciate your service and your recommendations. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You to everyone who testified. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? We now have a presentation of our Environmental Excellence Awards.
Good evening. My name is Will McLean, and I am the chair of the Environment Commission. In 2003, the mayor and council established the Environmental Excellence Awards to acknowledge the community and bring community attention to extraordinary accomplishments made by city residents, organizations, and businesses working to enhance Rockville's environment and sustainability. Anyone can, at any time, nominate an individual, organization, or business for an Environmental Excellence Award. Joining us this evening is Jen Hawes, another Rockville Environment Commission member, and we are designated by the Mayor and Council to review nominations and recommend award recipients. And today we're very happy to do so for 3 awards. And we thank the Mayor and Council for recognizing these 3 award winners this evening. And now we'd like to say a few words about them. So first, the Environment Commission recommends Terry Pinkston receive the Carl Henn Environmental Excellence Award for Outstanding Individual Environmental Stewardship for planting a wildlife habitat at their home and at a hospice center and teaching others the importance of native gardens. If Terry's here, you can join us. Wow. Thank you. I can. Yeah, I'd love to. I can say a few more words.
Terry,
you can say
she
here,
can
yeah.
just stand over there afterwards, and then the mayor and council will come up and take photos.
That's
with
great.
everybody.
Thank you. So Terry Pinkston has transformed her yard into an environmentally friendly habitat using native plants to create a rain garden, conservation landscaping, and a pollinator habitat. Since moving to Rockville from Texas, Terry has dedicated herself to researching native plants that would attract native bees, butterflies, and other wildlife. Terry's pesticide-free gardens bloom almost all year round and includes colorful plants and shrubs that are native to Maryland, as well as fruits and vegetables. By using sustainable gardening practices and providing essential wildlife habitat elements, including food, water, cover, and places to raise young, Terry's yard has been recognized as a certified wildlife habitat by the National Wildlife Federation and a certified monarch garden by the North American Butterfly Association. Not only has Terry shared her knowledge of native habitats with neighbors, she devoted her time to planting environmentally friendly gardens at a local hospice center and teaching other volunteers the importance of native plants. Terry and her husband Bill have also installed solar panels on their house and are always striving for ways to use less energy and help the environment. And Terry was nominated today by her neighbor, Janice Loonfield. Please congratulate Terry Pinkston for her outstanding effort to create a wildlife habitat and support others to do the same.
A group picture after everyone has come up. Yeah. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, Mayor and Council. The Environment Commission recommends Jyoti Bisbee receive the Carl Henn Environmental Excellence Award for Outstanding Individual Environmental Stewardship for serving as a community role model by removing litter from our ponds and creeks. Please welcome Jyoti Bisbee. Jyoti Bisbee serves as an environmental community champion by organizing, promoting, and leading her family and local volunteers in stream and park cleanups in her neighborhood of Horizon Hill. Jyoti's efforts began by leading her children in cleaning up litter through the community and soon grew to formally adopting the stream, valley, and ponds that run through Horizon Park through Rockville's Adopt a Stream program. In addition to regularly cleaning up litter with her family, she also organizes and hosts at least 2 larger community cleanups each year to encourage others to get involved. Jyoti uses social media to recruit and coordinate volunteers from her community and always makes a point to share their efforts through posts and photos to inspire others and to get involved in future cleanups. Jyoti is an excellent role model for others to take care of community streams, keep litter from polluting our environment, and impacting native birds and other wildlife. Jyoti's efforts have also inspired her son to clean up litter once a week at his nearby school. Jyoti also volunteers with the Rockville Environment Commission Salt Monitoring Initiative. Jyoti Bisbee was nominated by her neighbor, Nancy Sheental. Please congratulate Jyoti Bisbee for her leadership in promoting environmental stewardship in Rockville. Oh, and this. Sorry. That's yours. All right. And the Environment Commission recommends Westmore Commercial Condominium Association Incorporated for outstanding leadership in environmental practices. The association has inspired and supported its auto service members' efforts to clean up and remove trash, debris, and prevent pollution to our waterways. Please welcome John Deal to accept the award. I'm sorry, Gary. I said John. I'm sorry, Gary. All this time. Sorry. Westmore Commercial Condominium Association manages 6 buildings in a light industrial area in Rockville. 40 auto businesses make up much of the association membership, and poor management of abandoned cars, parts, debris, materials, and waste were a potential source of stormwater pollution. Over the past 3 years, city staff worked with Westmore as part of a new commercial property inspection program. The Condo Association has played an integral role in facilitating and assisting with cleanup and implementing good housekeeping practices on the property to reduce stormwater pollution at its source. Westmore ensured that their bylaws were aligned with city code, learned best management practices, for good housekeeping on commercial property, and now assists with regular yard inspections and supports tenants in the cleanup of excessive tires, auto body parts, and barrel removal. This has also encouraged tenants to work together as a community to keep the yard clean and reduce potential sources of pollution to our waterways. Westmore Commercial Condominium Association was nominated by Wendy Blackman, Environment Program Manager for the city. Please congratulate Westmore for their leadership in promoting environmental stewardship in Rockville.
If all the awardees can please come to the dais, we'd love to take a picture with you. Just want to say thank you to our Environment Commission for their outstanding work and to staff for reviewing all the Environmental Excellence Awards. I also been told that Terry Pinkston has invited us all over to her house to see her garden. I have personally seen it this weekend and it is incredible. All right. We will now move to our public hearing for sectional map amendment MAP 2024-00125, an application to rezone property at 4 Courthouse Square from MXTD to MXTD HD Historic District. We'll hear from staff presenter Sheila Bashiri, and then we'll open up to our public hearing participants. I'll also note that in addition to folks that we have here in the room, we have several comments that were received in writing, and I think about 10 or so. Okay. Ms. Bashiri, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me, Madam Mayor, council members. Tonight we're looking at sectional map amendment, MAP 2024-00125 for 4 Courthouse Square. This is a local designation process, and it's already gone through a good deal of this process. First of all, it was nominated by the Historic District Commission. An application was submitted, and then they reviewed it and made a recommendation for it to be designated. The Historic District Commission then filed what's called the sectional map amendment with with the clerk's office, and then it went to the Planning Commission for a recommendation for them to review it. And now tonight it's coming to the mayor and council to for the public hearing first, and then the next step will be for a discussion and instruction. The property itself is located at 4 Courthouse Square. It's located within the National Register Montgomery County Historic District, and also it's not within the Courthouse Square Historic District, which it's actually, the boundaries are actually around it, but not within it. So tonight what we're looking at is perhaps adding it to that historic district. This is the building itself. It's an Art Deco building located at the south and west, on the southwest corner of 4 Courthouse Square at Washington, at South Washington Street. And you're looking at the front elevation of it, the west elevation of it. And it was called the Farmers Bank and Trust. That's its former name, but the last name it had was M&T Bank. But actually, Farmers Bank has owned it since its inception, since it was constructed in 1931. So this is an Art Deco building, so you can tell that by the details that you see up in the corners, along the doorways and the windows, the full height of the windows, the window wells here. And so this is something that stands out in the city, and it's the only one actually in the city, and only Art Deco building in the city. This building has stood here since 1931, almost 100 years now. And as you can see from this map, this is a 1960 Sanborn Fire Insurance map. The city had urban renewal in the late 60s, early 70s, and the streets were rearranged. A lot of the buildings in downtown were demolished. But this is one of the buildings that remain. This and the courthouse, the gray courthouse across the street, the red brick courthouse as well across the street, and then the police station, the current police station. These are the only buildings that remain. Now, the police station was the post office at one point. So the timeline for this is that Peerless Rockville recommended that the HDC take a look at this building for possible designation and for adding it perhaps into the historic district, into the Courthouse Square Historic District. The HDC voted to put in a nomination application and to review the property. After they reviewed the property in December, they decided to recommend it for historic designation to the mayor and council. In March, the Planning Commission reviewed the property to find if it met the comprehensive plan and the purpose of the zoning ordinance, and it did. And so today is for the public hearing for mayor and council. The designation is part of a criteria that's required in order for it to be recommended. So that the HD found that it represents almost 100 years of banking in the city of Rockville. It provided capital to residents and businesses and assisted the local government with projects and fiscal management. And it's one of the few commercial buildings to survive the Rockville urban renewal. Additionally, its Farmers Bank and Trust is the only remaining Art Deco structure in the city of Rockville. It's the only remaining commercial Art Deco structure in the city of Rockville as well. And the building has stood at that position, at that corner, for nearly 100 years. As I said, it's the last remaining business for the business district because of urban renewal. And its monumental design, it stands out when you see it from any direction, it stands out. So the Planning Commission, their job was to review it to see will the designation be consistent with the comprehensive plan and will it meet the purpose of the historic zone, and they found that it does. So basically, they found that it met the comprehensive plan, several areas in the comprehensive plan that deal with historic preservation. It it was consistent with planning area 1 for historic preservation, and it does continue the history of the town center. And it does meet 5 stated purposes of the historic district zone, which are safeguard heritage, stabilize and improve property values, foster civic beauty, strengthen local economy, and promote preservation and appreciation of sites. So the mayor and council's role in historic designation is to determine whether to approve the map amendment to place it into the historic district. And in this particular case, it would be the MXTD district, placing it into the MXTD historic district. Factors to consider are the HDC's recommended that the property meets 4 criteria for historic designation. The Planning Commission's submission that designation would be in conformance with the comprehensive plan and it would meet the intent of the historic zone, the public testimony, and staff analysis. So staff recommends that the mayor and council conduct a public hearing and receive public testimony. And then at the June 10th meeting, staff and HCC recommend approval of the map amendment application MAP 2024-00125 for rezoning of the 4 Courthouse Square from MXTD to MXTD-HD. So for the June 10th meeting, which is for discussion, instruction, and possible adoption. So this will be your next step. And at that meeting, what can happen is the mayor and council can introduce and vote on the ordinance to grant the map amendment application, and do the ordinance for making it a historic district at that very same meeting if you have a majority vote to do it that evening. Or you can introduce the ordinance and grant the map amendment application without voting on it at that evening and taking it to the next meeting to discuss it and further vote on it. Or you can discuss the application and proposed ordinance and instruct staff to bring back the ordinance for another meeting for introduction or adoption at a later meeting. So are there any questions for me?
Thank you. Just for the listening public, I know that mayor and council has a set number of days from when the city receives the application. Can you please just clarify the deadline for that?
Usually there's 2 weeks for the public hearing. It has on occasion gone longer, or on occasion when there was just, the owner just putting it up, it has been exactly the 2 weeks, and then the next meeting it was voted on.
Okay. But also just to clarify, I think it's the 210 days.
Oh, the 210 days, yes. The date for 210 days, I believe, is July 12th. Okay, July 12th.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are we okay to go to the public hearing and listen to our community? All right, thank you. We have several folks who have signed up in advance, and then, as I mentioned earlier, we have folks who have submitted online. The mayor and council have seen all correspondence. I will note that mayor and council generally do not send direct emails until a decision is made. So if you don't hear directly from one of us, we're trying to follow the rules on this to make sure that we are able to vote at the time. All right. The first person is Reverend Jane Wood, followed by Nancy Picard. Welcome.
Madam Mayor, the public hearing has been noticed. It was noticed on May 2nd, May 9th, and published on the website.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Reverend Jane Wood, 23 Martins Lane, Rockville, Maryland. Good evening. I am speaking in support of putting the former Farmers Banking and Trust Building, now known as M&T Bank Building, on local and state historical registers. I understand it has a national designation. I believe the Art Deco design, as well as the significance of being operational as a bank since 1931, should qualify. For me, it is a Rockville treasure and landmark. I was born and raised in Rockville. William Bill Wood, the Rockville Parade founder, worked at the Farmers Bank and Trust Building as a janitor and unofficial greeter. He would take great pride in polishing the brass emblem on the front of the bank. As a child, my job was to clean the ashtrays. My brothers did the heavy work. So I thank you for supporting the effort to have this treasure on local and state historic registers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Nancy Picard.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Ashton and members of the council. I'm Nancy Picard, Executive Director of Peerless Rockville. The staff report before you tonight lays out a clear, concise path to historic designation for the Farmers Banking and Trust Building at 4 Courthouse Square. On behalf of Peerless Rockville, I would like to call attention to some crucial elements and most importantly, acknowledge the expertise and the enthusiasm of the Historic District Commission for unanimously bringing this forward. Rockville's HDC is charged with safeguarding the heritage of Rockville, stabilizing and improving property values within these districts, fostering civic beauty, strengthening the local economy, and promoting the use and preservation of historic districts for the education, welfare, and pleasure of the residents of Rockville. They nominated and reviewed 4 Courthouse Square for designation and unanimously voted that it met their criteria. The Planning Commission also found that this building meets the criteria for local designation and is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The significance of this building has been affirmed by these 2 city bodies. It has also been recognized on the national level by the prestigious Register of Historic Places. This National Register district is what remains of Rockville's original commercial, governmental, and residential center, both for architectural and historic significance. Historic designation is an uncommon but an important zoning tool that serves the public interest by safeguarding its historic places. This unique building before you tonight is worthy according to the city's strict criteria. Only 7 buildings have been designated in Rockville since 2013. These include 3 residences associated with Black history, a Victorian home, a bungalow, and 1 colonial revival. In addition, the modern multifamily Americana Center was designated, and that was brought forward by its residents. No historically commercial properties have been designated in the city since 1974, when the B&O Railroad Historic District was established. Historic preservation is in the public interest, a public good whose merits have been vetted and codified into law at the federal, state, and local levels. As mayor and council, you will have the responsibility of considering this designation, reviewing all public comments, and deciding to permanently protect this important piece of Rockville's history. Every evaluation of significance is unique, and designation relates only to the building or district in question. Each decision sets no precedent for the future. Each subject is different, and each has distinct qualifications. 4 Courthouse Square is exceptionally unique, and no evaluation of significance will be similar, as this is the only Art Deco building, this is the oldest bank building, this is the oldest undesignated commercial building, this is the oldest survival of Rockville's historic Main Street on the north side of Courthouse Square, as all its neighbors on that side of the street are gone or unrecognizable from the mass demolition that occurred during urban renewal. Furthermore, Farmers Banking and Trust stands on a tiny 0.14-acre parcel with limited parking, which severely limits large redevelopment. Though it is small, the parcel has been purposely safeguarded through many transitions over the past 90 years. Why is this? Because it is a landmark, familiar and treasured for generations, with striking architecture. Goal 4 of the 2040 Comprehensive Master Plan for Area 1 on page 216 clearly recommends a strategy to create public landmarks in the town center. This beautiful Art Deco building is pictured on page 67 of the Rockville Town Center Master Plan as an illustration of the National Register properties in the planning area. But yet, it is the only one that has no local protection. Your vote can ensure that this important and treasured building remains part of the Rockville streetscape for the benefit of future generations. Like the post office and Gray Courthouse, this building will find new purpose through adaptive and preservation-friendly use. Local designation affords the next owner of this building lucrative tax credits that will encourage economic growth and vitality at this location. Local designation also permits thoughtful renovations and additions while protecting this landmark. Please affirm the recommendations of the HDC and the Planning Commission. Follow Rockville's clear historic preservation policies and choose to designate this special building to ensure its future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we welcome John Tyner, followed by Paul Hillstrom.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Good to see you all. I'm here to give you a people view. You've had all the technical reasons for why this is a marvelous building. Do you ever wonder why, when the original downtown Rockville was torn down, why this building was left? It's because it was a powerful bank that kept that building going. And when we talk about being the only one left in town, it's because they served a tremendous group of people. I used to bank there myself. I used to pump Esso gas from the station that used to be right next to it. So, I mean, it's a lot of stuff that's gone. We've had so many town center plans and looking at North Washington Street. Each time we had citizens coming in talking about downtown, but they were always bearing in the mind that lovely building that's sitting on the corner there. That building was never really thought about from a planning perspective until the Arthur Cotton Moore plan in 1978, which was the first of the real, where the city put money behind itself to go ahead and look at what needed to be done. When we were acquiring the post office from the federal government for $1, I don't think you'll do that today, but it's the sort of thing, a lot of people were so curious about what was happening with the Art Deco bank. They didn't really recognize it as Art Deco. It was just a neat bank. It looked good. And by the way, talking about property, there is one patch that's still unattached at the moment. Those of you who wonder about the corner where the police station is, which is just an open, used to be Burbank's restaurant, burned down, and the city was not able to get the property. But for Peerless and others, it's something you might need to look at in the future to close off what we're now talking about is a complete courthouse center. What's so nice about the bank, and I won't mention its name even though it still owns the bank, I was always very interested when the bank needed to make some adjustments to its second floor and in the basement. They made adjustments that did not harm the Art Deco effect of the exterior. And to me, in those 60s and 70s, for a company to pay attention to that kind of stuff, that was really something to me for that. And those of us who lived in Twinbrook, we liked it very much as well. I want to tell you a little about when we were working for 4 years on a comprehensive master plan. In the staff report, it talks about the historic district section of it, and then talk about planning area 1. We met 44 meetings. The staff and the planning commission members met 44 meetings with around this town, and whenever we came up with a historic district, as what kind of criteria, they all, in many of those groups, they all wanted to know what was happening with the bank. So there's interest out there for it as a something to be looking at. And I have to say, in my long term on the planning commission, in that 16 years, every time we had an applicant coming into downtown to do something, they were always making sure that we as commissioners knew that they weren't planning on doing anything with the bank. The bank was there, the lovely building, because it is the last Art Deco piece, in Rockville, and I believe almost in the county. Last comment I would make is seems to me that whatever we do with the building itself, and I hope you guys will go ahead and approve it and give it the historic designation, and I'll be through in a minute. I'm looking at my clock here. It occurs to me that that building, if it's ever taken over by another group, that is the perfect setting in the center of Rockville to be headquarters for historic preservation groups or what you might call historic cultural heritage groups. All those sorts of things would be a perfect set right in the middle of where we are here. And with that, I thank you. I'll be quiet, and we might have some more technical matters now.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Just a quick reminder to everyone, please watch the clock, and we appreciate everyone's testimony. Paul Hillstrom, followed by Michael Goldfinger.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Chamber, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight in support of the designation of this amazing bank. My name is Paul Hillstrom. I am a member of the board of directors for Pierce Rockville for the past 10 years, and certainly a fan of the organization for many years prior. My parents moved our family to Rockville in 1960. Although we were outside the city limits, we always felt in our hearts that we were Rockvillians. Favorable support for historic designation of the Farmers Bank and Trust is overwhelming. From historians to local residents, nearly unanimous support for historic designation has been expressed. This is the most important point to leave tonight, is that, again, between the historians, experts, and local residents, there is overwhelming support for the designation. Recognizing the gravity of a decision to designate a property as historic, Rockville, like most local jurisdictions and state, has rigorous procedures. It determinations are based on criteria that reflect national and local precepts, which have been incorporated in the legally encoded powers and duties of Rockville's commissions. The process begins with the Historic District Commission, the HDC, as already has been noted, which follows a prescribed set of steps, including analysis by expert historians who assess the architectural and historical merits of the property. You will or have heard some specific details of the experts' assessments that confirm the merits of historic designation of the bank. Following HGC evaluation, the Planning Commission reviews and determines whether or not the subject property is consistent with the comprehensive plan, again, as mentioned earlier. And equally important is that at each step of the process, the public has been invited to participate, and that gives everyone the opportunity to share their input. As shown in the staff report, the HDC and PC have stated that historical designation meets the number one, Rockville's criteria, state and local laws, and is consistent with Rockville's comprehensive plan. Other historical organizations that have reviewed the application concur, and these include the Montgomery Preservation, the Art Deco Society of Washington, and Peerless Rockville. Letters were written to the Historic District and Planning Commissions by 34 individuals. Now, 97% of those, or 33, expressed support for the designation. There was only one who was a little ambivalent about it, but they did not oppose it. Of those who in support of the designation, more than 80% are Rockvillians, those who live in Rockville today or have spent most of their lives here, such as myself. The owner of the bank property attended the HDC meeting's evaluation of significance meeting and did not express opposition to the historic designation. So in summary, historians and local residents are clearly and totally in support of the designation. And I hope after completing your review of the law, looking at the evidence and views of the historians and individuals, that you will vote in favor of this designation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael Goldfinger, are you here? Welcome. After that, we'll have Margaret Magner.
Good evening, Mayor Ashton and council members. In retrospect, I regret that I wasn't expecting to speak, so I didn't plan anything. So I'm just going to go on for hopefully not my allotted time. But I said Michael Goldfinger. I'm a commissioner on the Historic District Commission and strongly interested in Rockville's history ever since I moved here almost 50 years ago. City has a long history, as I said earlier tonight. So much of it is gone, and you've heard all the other arguments from the other speakers, and I'm sure you've read the reports and so on. But I'm not sure they talked about how much of our history is gone, and we can't get it back. There's not much remaining. This bank building is one of the few remaining buildings in the town center area that goes back more than 10 years ago. You look at town center, it's very nice, it's very clean, it's very new. It doesn't speak to the city's long history. I'm told that before they demolished the town center to erect that monstrosity known as Rockville Mall, I don't know if any of you remember it, it's just horrible. It was a thriving retail downtown, and we've kind of lost that. And we've lost so much, and this bank building is one of the few remaining structures that speak to the city's past. And I would strongly urge the mayor and council, when the vote comes up, to approve the designation to preserve this history and this little bit of the city's bygone days for people who come behind us. I think I've sort of said all I can think of at the time, but that's my speech, and I would appreciate your voting in favor of designation when the time comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
I finally figured out where to put this so it doesn't slide while I'm talking to you. So, good evening, Mayor and Council. I do not have the credentials or the public service records of fellow speakers who have been here on this topic tonight. My name is Margaret Magner, and I just live at 115 Forest Avenue, a few blocks from the bank building. So I'm here to give you that perspective. I wholeheartedly support the Historic District Commission's nomination of the Farmers Banking and Trust Building for local historic designation. Here are some facts that support a finding by the Mayor and Council that this building is historically significant and belongs in the Courthouse Square Historic District. It's already on the National Historic Register, as you've heard, and I know you know. Its significance has been recognized by the federal government and the state of Maryland, on whose evaluation criteria the Rockville standards are based. Its significance has also been recognized by the city's Historic District Commission and Planning Commission, as the members of each body have unanimously agreed that the MAP amendment meets the city significance criteria in which they specialize. The building is Rockville's only surviving example of Art Deco institutional architecture after the demolitions of Rockville's urban renewal period. It's a high quality example of this style of architecture, including skillfully carved Art Deco reliefs and carved period institutional signage. And especially the history and sense of place that this building brings to Rockville's town center sets Rockville apart from other jurisdictions. The Farmers Building and Trust Building stands, together with the 1931 Gray Courthouse and the 1939 Old Post Office Building, on a historic corner that gives the town center enormous and unique pride of place. Important things have happened here. Thurgood Marshall, for example, walked past this bank building as a young lawyer in 1936, arguing at the Gray Courthouse across the street for equal pay for black teachers. In the case of Gibbsby v. Broome, there is nothing like this corner at Park and Rose or Crown. This gives us pride of place and connects us with the history of what's happened in our hometown. The city has acted in the past to protect this small but meaningful parcel, as you've heard. And tonight, I urge you to follow the views of the HDC, the Planning Commission, and the many residents of Rockville who have spoken up and voiced the value to them of this structure that ties us to our past and offers us unique beauty, placemaking, and usefulness to our future. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Eileen McGuckian.
Good evening. I'm here to enthusiastically ask for your support of designation of this particular building. After Montgomery County was created and our small crossroads was selected as the county seat, the area around Courthouse Square became the site for our most important buildings. Courthouses, banks, hotels, shops, offices, restaurants filled Commerce Lane and East Montgomery Avenue. By 1930, with a population of 1,422, Rockville began a decade of updating that main commercial street, attempting to keep pace with rapidly growing down-county suburban areas. Opening here were not only a new courthouse, but Rockville's first purpose-built post office, a talkie movie house, national chain grocery stores, automobile-related shops, and this beautiful new bank with its modern urban architecture designed by a noted architect. Farmers Bank is an imposing commercial structure that exudes prosperity, and longevity. Its stunning Art Deco architecture represents Rockville's pre-World War II Main Street. When urban renewal took away much of our downtown, certain important buildings were identified to remain. Even as the mall opened and new residential uses happened, they were seen as compatible with this grand building on the corner. When the Judicial Center was about to be constructed, there was particular concern for the red brick courthouse. How would it be used once the spacious new courthouse was open? Concern turned into action with city designation of the two older courthouses in 1979. And at that time, both the old post office and Farmers Bank were thriving with local customers within walking distance. By 1986, all of these buildings had passed the 50-year threshold for listing in the National Register. The U.S. Department of the Interior agreed that Farmers Bank was significant as Rockville's only surviving Art Deco and a strong representative of the city's significance. Regarding the city's process of designation, when I chaired Rockville's HDC in the 1970s, we followed the identical process in place in Annapolis and Frederick, and that you follow today. You have before you the unanimous recommendations of your two statutory bodies that this property meets multiple criteria, and you know that it follows the comprehensive plan and holds up the long-held reverence for Courthouse Square. There are financial implications of historic designation. From Maryland's first law in the 1960s, two of the stated public purposes for creating historic districts are economic in nature. Values of individual properties would not only be stabilized but improved, and the entire local economy would be strengthened by reuse of historic buildings. 6 decades later, not only have these purposes proved true throughout Maryland, but owner experiences have been overwhelmingly good, and newer economic incentives are in place now. Owners can claim tax credits for repair and restoration work done on their properties, and in some cases, grants and loans are only available for properties that are officially recognized. Local designation will provide to the owner of Farmers Bank incentives needed to move this building on to its next phase. I hope that M&T Bank want the best for its future. To my mind, that best is an owner who respects its history and architecture, takes advantage of its central location on our traditional main commercial street, updates it as needed for an appropriate new use, and appreciates how beloved it is in our community. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. That exhausts the list of folks who have signed up in advance. Would anyone else like to speak? Please come forward. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Vincent Russo. I live at 1019 DeBeck Drive. I think Mayor and Council must carefully weigh this nomination. for historic designation. The structure is obviously retains very special characteristics, but imposing this historic designation may not be in the city's best interest. I think that ambivalence is, I think this is also reflected in the ambivalence of the tepid findings of the Planning Commission when it reviewed this back in March. We have to acknowledge that the property was nominated for designation without the consent of its owner, while that owner was marketing the property for sale. Mayor and council must consider the signal that designation under these circumstances would send to owners of other commercial properties with similar profiles. And this is not a hypothetical scenario. Many of Rockville's commercial buildings are reaching or surpassing the 50-year threshold for consideration. And the criteria for historic significance are quite broad and subjective. So the city should avoid setting a potentially destabilizing precedent for spontaneous rezoning when owners of old commercial properties begin to try to transact those properties. I'm troubled also by the explicit intent behind the nomination to constrain the redevelopment opportunities for the new owner. Like many historic bank buildings that are no longer viable for their original use, this structure will need to be reinvented, possibly with alterations that would not be possible under the historic district zoning. The building does have a modest footprint, so additional height could expand the scope of commercially viable options for this property in an area where the city very much wants to attract additional investment. The rush to relegate the structure to protected status reflects a lack of imagination about the potential options for it. Even without the map amendment, the city still retains plenty of leverage to influence the building's evolution, and the new owner, unburdened by the constraints imposed by historic designation, will be able to be free to consider the full range of possibilities that are allowed by the current mixed-use transit district zoning. Nothing gets demolished in Rockville without a review for significance. So the building is not going to be demolished without another review. The necessary protections are already in place for the building. So in the spirit of preservation, I urge you to preserve as many options, reinvention options for this property as possible for future Rockvillians to enjoy, and recommend the denial of the map amendment for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Colleagues, do you have any questions for staff?
Madam Mayor, we have one virtual speaker.
Oh, wonderful. Welcome.
Danny, is there a virtual speaker on?
Mayor and Council, my name is Miriam Buno, and I'm the Education and Outreach Manager for Peerless Rockville. The Farmers Banking and Trust Building is a unique and significant structure. It is a rare survivor of urban renewal that destroyed the majority of Rockville's historic business district, the only intact example of Art Deco architecture with beautiful integrity, and a symbol of almost a century of life in Rockville. This building was an early financial institution in the small town of Rockville, providing capital for city businesses, residents, and industries. Their presence and services allowed people and companies to invest in life in Rockville. The building represents early Rockville's financial institutions planned and constructed during a prosperous period enduring the Great Depression and surviving the economic turmoil and physical destruction of urban renewal in downtown Rockville. It operated as a financial institution from 1930 until 2023. This building has been purposely and deliberately protected from the transformations of Rockville's downtown over the past 90 years. During urban renewal, it was declared a conservation building and spared from demolition. In the 1980s, as Courthouse Square developed, the city of Rockville demanded an agreement with the developer Cornelius Whalen that if he acquired the building, he must preserve at least the west and south facades and if he did not acquire it, his neighboring project was required to treat this building with sympathy. Instead, 4 Courthouse Square remained under the same corporate ownership until last year, and we are deeply grateful that they were excellent stewards. This building is an established, enduring, and esteemed feature of the downtown, visible from both Courthouse Square and North Washington Street. Rockville's population has viewed this unique architecture as they went to the post office, now the police station, court, now Montgomery County Government Department offices, Rockville's main business district, and the Rockville Mall. Now is the opportunity to protect this landmark. The local designation of the building will maintain the historic character and identity of the Montgomery County Courthouse National Register Historic District, the local Courthouse Square Historic District, and historic designation will protect the rich history of Planning Area 1 Town Center. It is in conformance with the master plan, the historic preservation element, and the purposes of the historic district zone overlay. And if I may rebuke the person who spoke before me, there is no mechanism to preserve this building without local designation. If you decline to do so and a demolition permit is submitted the next day, there will be no recourse. There is no protecting this building without local designation. And to repeat others who spoke before me, designating this building sets no precedent for future evaluations. The owners of this building have been present during every step of the way and never spoken in opposition, and that further, designation does not prevent renovations or additions. It simply requires that they be complementary to the building and go through the city's regulatory process. So I would like to rebuke the person who spoke before me. Designation is how this building is protected. Designation is how this building can find new adaptive reuse and in fact can be renovated and added to, including height. So thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay. I would just note we appreciate everyone who has testified. We appreciate differing opinions respectfully, and we can make those opinions known. So I appreciate the collegial and respectful nature at which we'll continue on this discussion. I understand this will come before us again on June 10th. I believe a couple of my colleagues may have a few questions, but just note to folks that we are listening today and getting feedback, but we will be making a decision around that time, at least giving some direction to staff. Okay. I'll open up for questions. Councilmember Dr. Miles and then Councilmember Valeri.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you all for coming out this evening. I echo the comments of Madam Mayor on that point. Just had a quick question after reading. Is the building still up for sale? Has it already sold? Or I'm trying to figure out what the status is.
I think it's right now in the process of, there's some negotiations going on with the building.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah. That's all.
Councilmember Valeri?
I only had one question before, but now I have two questions. And I apologize for my voice. The process of demolition or demolishing, because I know that recently occurred in Twinbrook. Does that go before the Historic District Commission before? Okay. So that was my first question. My second question is, I was trying to figure out kind of the process of community outreach outside of mailing a postcard. And maybe I missed it. I apologize if I did. How were the residents of Town Center, how were they engaged? I see that the West End Community Civic Association, that they were engaged, but I didn't see where the residents that do live in Town Center were.
The Victorian, I believe it is, apartments that are right there were sent. They don't have like a real address for a association. It's their management, so they were sent the information to let them know that this was coming up before the Historic District Commission.
Okay, and I apologize because my hearing is not the best. They were sent?
Yes.
They were, affirmative, okay. But I'm hopeful that maybe, and I don't know if this falls within the time frame, but we were able to engage more broadly the town center community on things like the master plan and Vision Zero. I think we have good models for how to engage the community. So I don't know if it's possible this time or maybe next, but I really would like to kind of hear more of those voices because that is their neighborhood too.
Okay. In addition, we are required to send out notices to everyone within 750 feet of the property itself. Yes.
No, and I appreciate that a lot. I was just thinking kind of beyond that, that like, I know human to human interaction is not cool anymore, but I'm a big fan of that to get people's feedback. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Just to follow on a question that was asked and things we heard in the public comment, and then I see Councilmember Jackson and Councilmember Van Grack will be asking questions next. If it is not designated and it goes through the demolition process, what criteria would the HDC or anyone use when looking at demolition to be able to have any influence? I'm just trying to understand that process.
Okay. Well, every building in Rockville that puts in for a demolition permit must go through the process of an evaluation of historic significance. And so basically, going through the designation process and going through the evaluation is the same thing. The same criteria are looked at when looking at whether a building should be demolished. And the whole purpose of this ordinance is to avoid tearing down something that might be important to the city before the city has a chance to weigh in on it.
And for clarity, if it's not designated and it goes through a demolition permit, could they still say, we don't want you to demolish it? I mean, what grounds would they have to do that?
Actually, if the HDC determines that it has historic significance, then we'll go through the same process of coming to you, and you would make the final decision on that.
So it basically circles back.
Yes.
I think that's good clarity for the public. Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So actually, you asked, and Councilmember Valerie did as well, one question. So it's already been answered about demolition. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, both the pro side and people raising questions about what we're doing here. I found it really insightful, and I thank you for engaging in the process. And I thank staff as well. I know it's been a long process with the Historic District Commission and then the Planning Commission, and that's what I want to focus on because I'm a little bit confused. We heard various descriptions of the Planning Commission decision, and the votes were radically different when people were talking about them. People were talking about it being unanimous, and then we heard a tepid decision. So can you speak to that and maybe get some history on the Planning Commission and what they actually recommended?
So the Planning Commission's job is to make sure that it meets the requirements of the comprehensive plan and for that particular area number 1. So they did find that it does meet those requirements. But I did try to cover all the comments that were in the memo because there were varying feelings about whether or not to designate as looking at it met the requirements, but they were afraid that it might stop the possibility of development at that property. They were afraid that someone might want to come along and tear it down and build a housing unit. That is a very small plot of land right there, so there's very little that can be done unless it's torn down. I did let them know that if someone wants to develop the property and they want to do an addition, if it gets designated, we're trying to retain the historic character of it in the front and sides, but you can always go up, and this often happens with a historic building that's in a commercial district that's landlocked, basically. A lot of times the decision is to go up to add space to it. The other thing is adaptive reuse, keeping the building as is on the exterior, but rehabbing the interior for uses as a restaurant or a museum or something to that effect. There's always things that can be done. So there are some feelings about the need for housing in the area, but it is surrounded by housing as it is now. There's very little that you could do at that small spot, but they wanted their feelings known. There were some members that felt like it was important to designate, and then there were some other members that felt like, kind of slow down and see what else could be done to it. They just didn't want to inhibit the possibility of development of that property.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Bancroft.
Close enough. Councilmember Jackson went
You
right
got promoted just now.
Obviously, thank you to everybody who came out and for staff for putting this together. I did have some questions about the Planning Commission, which was answered, but I just want to clarify, the HDC, with regard to their vote, was unanimous in support of this.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And was there any concern, or were they unanimous in that this
They were
was...
unanimous. They felt it was important. They felt that it met the criteria. We do have 9 criteria that we use to determine whether or not a building should even be brought forth for a historic designation. And it only has to meet 1 of those, and they felt it met 4 of those criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I too want to thank everyone who came out. A lot of background and research went into your testimonies. I appreciate all views. I did want to note, if we could go back to the agenda book, there was something when it got updated that the staff report got moved around. So just so that the record is clean, for folks who want to reference this item, we will get that fixed. It wasn't an earlier version. I know it was there. So I also wanted to just make sure we're clear on the timing of that this is open for comments. Can you please speak to that? I know that this comes back June 10th. I'd like to be able to get people be able to send more comments to the mayor and council.
Usually the period for being open for public comment is 2 weeks. You do set the time period. It all depends on how you feel, whether you feel like more time is needed or not.
So we have, I think that we should, you need some time to put comments into the brief book, right?
Yes, we've already begun working on the report because we knew that this time for June 10th was coming up very soon. And so we've already begun working on the brief book for that. As far as our report, it's pretty much done. We wanted to get comments for tonight before we complete our report, but it's pretty much ready to go.
Okay. I was thinking that we might, so the 2-week time period ending would be what date? I have my own calendar, but what is it looking like for you?
We have not actually finalized the date because we wanted to know what you had in mind.
I want to keep it open as long as we can. So that
Okay.
depends on what you can do from a staff report perspective.
June 3rd?
Okay. That's great. Let's leave it open until June 3rd. Are you guys okay with that, team? Yes, okay. All right, and then Councilmember Valera, you have a question.
Sorry, and these things pop in my head randomly. So you mentioned adaptive reuse, and you mentioned also the ability to go up in height, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, I'm thinking about some of the really cool old banks in DC that have also done similarly.
Exactly.
One actually was turned into a Borders. Anyway, so that would be allowable given the overlay? Are both of those options allowable, and are there barriers to allowing it? Like, is there additional steps?
The Historic District Commission would have to approve the design for it, but I've worked in other municipalities where we did this, and one of the important things was keeping the historic character of the building, and so a lot of times that 3rd or 4th story would set back a little bit, so that when you're looking at it from the street, you don't really notice that additional floor there. So it helps it to keep its character, but also makes it usable.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you very much.
Can you remind us of the square footage at the base?
It's like 0.4.
Very small. It looks pretty small.
0.4 acres or something like that. .14
Right.
acres. That's okay. Thank you.
It is a very small footprint.
Very small, yes.
Right, yeah. And then I just want to thank you I sent several questions in advance, just asking similar things about adaptive reuse. I know that there's some experiences in DC where, some banks are restaurants. In Baltimore, there's one that's a hotel. So I appreciate all the response to the mayor and council so that we can deliberate and think through this process. Okay. All right, thank you everyone for attending. We appreciate all of your feedback, as my colleagues have noted, and we'll see everyone again June 10th.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We're going to move to our consent agenda, and then we will be taking a brief break. On consent, we have items A through C. I noted that C was an addition on Thursday. We'll be looking at item 10A, which is the purchase of a utility truck. Item 10B is a cooperative agreement with Chesapeake Bay Trust to change the scope of work to support implement competitive water quality grants and to support Rockville's Rainscapes and Flood Mitigation Assistance Program. And the item that I mentioned was added is item 10C, award and authorize the city manager to execute a contract to support the recreation program bus transportation services for school bus transportation services in a total not to exceed $150, and that's to support our summer program. Colleagues, are you willing to take all these together, or do you need to pull any for discussion? All right. With that, I have a motion to approve items 10A through C. Councilmember Fulton.
I'd like to move to approve consent agenda items A through C.
Thank you. Councilmember Valeri, seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. It is unanimous. We'll be taking a brief break. 5 minutes. Good evening, Rockville. Today is May 20th, and we're going to reconvene meeting 12-24. We are at agenda item 11A, adoption of a resolution to revise the city's statement of investment policy for the investments of the city's operating and capital funds. We welcome Stacy Webster and Kim Francesco.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. The item before you this evening is an update to the city's investment policy. The policy governs the investment of non-trust, non-retirement investments and has been updated to conform the state of Maryland statutes. According to state code, the city is required to adopt its investment policy by resolution. Tonight we have with us Brian Sanker and Kasha Frock, our investment advisors from PFM Asset Management. They will share a brief presentation with the mayor and council covering the investment policy best practices and highlighting the changes recommended to the city's policy. Following the presentation, staff recommends that the mayor and council adopt the resolution to formally revise the city's investment policy.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Katja Frock, and I'm from PFM Asset Management, and thank you for having me here this evening. As Kim mentioned, our goal tonight was to provide you a brief overview of what an investment policy actually is, and then go into a little bit of the detail about what the city's investment policy looks like and the changes that we're looking at today. So Kim, can you flip forward a couple of slides for me? Go forward one more. So overall, when we look at investment policies, the idea is what are they actually doing for you? And the idea behind an investment policy is really to provide you a roadmap or a set of guidelines to help you guide your investment decisions. It really demonstrates your commitment to a fiduciary care of public funds. So we're talking about taxpayer monies here and making sure that you're doing the best that you can with that fiduciary responsibility. Policies in general for governmental entities are structured with safety of principal and liquidity of funds being the top two priorities, followed by gaining an optimizing the return on your investment. They overall make sure that they are in compliance both with state code, state statute, and also with best practices that are available throughout the United States. The idea is to make sure that they are flexible, yet simple enough to provide you with the goals to help meet the goals that you have for your city. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. So when we looked at the City of Rockville's overall investment policy, one of the things we look at is the GFOA, so that's the Government Finance Officers Association's guidelines for best practices. And we made sure that the City of Rockville's investment policy really addressed each one of those items that's listed on the slide in front of you. Making sure that the scope and the investment objectives are outright and out front, making sure that the investments that are there are suitable for to meet the goals that you have for the city's funds. At the very end of it is making sure, of course, that the reporting and disclosure standards are all up to date and what are necessary to make sure that you're in compliance with your policy. Next slide. So we began working with the city actually back in 2018. And when we met with you all initially, what we did is we looked at through the investment policy and came together on what the investment policy should look like. Then annually, we review this with the city staff, and then ongoing, we look to see if there's any additional changes that need to be made, whether it's a change in a city department name or if there's a change in another management contract that might impact the policy overall, to make sure that they all guide together. Then often, sometimes there are changes to the investment code in Maryland. So in the last review that we did for you, the one that we're going to talk about now, there were some changes to the permitted investment language that were in Maryland State Code. So we went ahead and updated the policy to reflect those different permitted investment languages. So on the next slide is the summary of the updated changes that we made. I'm happy to go through each of these individually with you if you'd like, or we can just take questions at this point to see what questions you might have about investment policies or your investment policy specifically. Yes, sir. Oh, am I allowed to take questions?
Dr. Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I apologize. So I read through this back on Thursday. I actually wrote the question out but failed to send it, so apologies. I'm not meaning to throw y'all under the bus, and if folks need to come back to me later, that's cool too. I do want to make sure that I'm understanding this from the perspective of investment policies, based on the retirement. Is it separate from the retirement board? Or is the city finance? You're saying yes, it's separate from the retirement board?
It is separate.
Got
yes.
it. I think that answers my question then. Well, kind of. I guess one of the things that came up during the retirement board, and I don't know if this could apply to what you're presenting this evening, was that there was discussion about using these like ESG principles in terms of investing on a retirement board status. I do know that similar legislation was proposed at the state level shortly thereafter. Does that have any implications for what we're discussing this evening or no?
So there's no ESG policies or direction placed inside your policy right now, so there is nothing related to that.
Understood. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess I have a follow-up question, if I may.
Please proceed.
This is more of a discussion. I apologize about not having this question up. Is there a way to include that if we want it as a body?
Absolutely.
How will we go about doing that?
I'm going to defer to Stacy.
And I want to be clear, so ESG is environmental social governance principles that some municipalities are starting to look at in terms of, as an example, do we want to invest in tobacco, for example? Yes, no. ESG principles often would say no, but that's, again, a policy discussion I think we have to have, but I'm just asking the question amongst ourselves and our guests here this evening.
Yeah, I think, Dr. Miles, we would have to look into it and get back to you, and if that is something that the mayor and council would like us to do, I mean, it would take some resource effort for us to go through that process with the financial advisor, if that's something you're interested in. I would still recommend moving forward with these changes tonight, but if the body is interested in looking at ESG principles in general and how they could fit into this policy, that could be a directive that we should work on in the upcoming months.
Thanks so much. Again, apologies about the last minute nature of the question.
Thank you. I know this question, we raised this during our last term for some of us who were up here previously. I think it'd be worth sharing with our entire body the latest thinking on this. I, for one, I'm interested in knowing, like, are we investing in, for example, gun manufacturers, or, as my colleague said, tobacco. I know that when you're in a fund, it's hard to ascertain that, and I also know that you're trying to maximize the return. But do you have experience in doing any ESG?
So we do have experience doing that. We use an outside platform to help us break down the different corporate type issuers that would be in a portfolio and where their specific focus is. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I think it's with the limited scope that's allowed under Maryland statute for general fund money and reserves like this that we're talking about. It's there's not a lot of parameters either way in terms of either accessing something positive with ESG or being invested, in something that would be, counter to the wishes of council, compared to a pension fund where I think there's a lot more latitude for that discussion. I'm not saying the discussion isn't appropriate here. It's just there's the amount of corporate issuers that you're allowed to invest in is limited to about 10% of your portfolio. Mm-hmm. So it does kind of limit the scope beyond just that, but I'd say that's one big parameter where this is much more narrow versus the pension, which has a broader mandate to invest, again, more broadly.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilman Valeri.
So what would we need to do, Madam Mayor and staff, if we wanted to explore that? I know that Madam Mayor just mentioned sharing what the previous body had, the information that you had gotten, but I think it would be a good conversation acknowledging the feedback that you provided, which is very helpful to know, but I would be interested in exploring it, because I think we do need to kind of live out our shared communal values on things. So I don't know what the process would be on that.
Thank you. Ms. Francesca.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Valeri, the previous mayor and council did discuss this in the context of pension plan investments, and that language has been folded in. And as Mr. Sanker mentioned, those investments, those funds can be invested much more broadly than these. These are far more restricted, and they're restricted by those state of Maryland statutes. So Section 10 of the investment policy before you this evening notes that the most that we could have in our portfolio is 10% of commercial paper, and that would really be the area that could have any ESG relevance, frankly. So it's something that we could look into over the next couple months, and we could look at what it might mean to fold in some of that language here. We would also need to make sure that we are remaining compliant with state of Maryland code and not doing something outside of those parameters. We would need to work with the city attorney's office, I imagine, with that as well.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions?
Can I just ask for clarity since
Yes,
we're closing that out?
Councilmember Fulton.
Thank you. Is there direction from the body for them to do what Ms. Francesca just
There
proposed?
are 3 of us,
Okay.
so we would need another person to say. Is anyone else interested in getting that information? Yes? Yeah, sure.
So I do want to just make one clarification. There's no prior information that we'll be providing you because that was done in the context of the trust funds. So what we'll do is work with our financial advisor and come up with new information or proposed language that will come to you.
Thank you. And let us also know, just to weigh the pros and cons, just so we have everything. Okay, thank you. All right. Is there anything else related to this item? Do you want us to move to adopt? Colleagues? All right, we'll need a motion. If there are no other questions and we're feeling good, we need a motion to adopt a resolution to revise the city's statement of investment policy for the investment of the city's operating and capital funds. Councilmember Jackson.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution to revise the city's statements of investment policy for the investment of the city's operating and capital funds.
Do we have a second? Thank you. It's been made and seconded by Councilmember Shaw. Please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
All right. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. We'll now move on to agenda item 11B, which is the adoption of a resolution to approve with conditions project plan application PJT 2024-0017 Rockshire Village Center, a request to amend the Rockshire plan development to permit construction of 60 residential units, up to 5,200 square feet of commercial and office use, and a neighborhood park at 2401 Wooten Parkway. And welcome, Mr. Ortiz.
Good evening, Nelson Ortiz with Community Planning and Development Services Department. Again, this is Rockshire Village Center, a project plan application PJT 2024-00017. Just to recap on this project, the project is located at 2401 Wooden Parkway on the corner of Wooden Parkway and Hurley Avenue. The property is zoned PDRS, that's Planned Development Rockshire zone, and has an equivalent zone of MXNC, mixed use neighborhood center. The applicant is proposing to amend the Rockshire plan development to construct 60 dwelling units, 31 single-family detached dwellings, and 29 townhouses, up to 5,200 square feet of neighborhood serving commercial and office, a neighborhood park. The applicant is also proposing, of course, parking for the retail center and 30 parking spaces for the Rockshire Homeowners Association. In their request, the applicant is also requesting 3 waivers, 1 parking waiver, road code waiver, and a waiver to the development standards of the equivalent zone, specifically for the setbacks. The mayor and council held a public hearing on this application on April 15th, where both staff and the applicant made presentations. Following the presentations, the item was open for the public hearing for the members of the public to opine on the application. There were 4 community members at that meeting, 1 expressing support for the project, and then the other 3 were seeking clarification on certain aspects of the project. And then on April 29th, the mayor and council held a discussion and instruction item where staff made a presentation. The presentation was then followed by a Q&A session with the mayor and council, the applicant, and staff. A number of items were discussed on April 29th to include the parking waiver and why the waiver was necessary and kind of staff's recommendation on that, as well as the Rockshire HOA parking, more in terms of enforcement and maintenance of the 30 parking spaces. Based on the discussion of the April 29th meeting, and since that meeting, staff has added this condition, which has been included to the resolution that's attached to the staff report. We believe that this condition will allow the city better enforcement of the 30 designated parking spaces. As you've heard previously through the public hearing, the proposed application, project plan application, complies with the comprehensive plan and the project plan findings in the zoning code. The Planning Commission heard this item or held a public hearing on this application on February 28th. Of this year, and recommended unanimous approval of the project as well as of the 3 waiver requests. And staff is recommending approval of the application, and we recommend that the mayor and council adopt the proposed resolution attached to the staff report. And we've included a recommended motion should the mayor and council want to move forward in that manner. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, myself, the applicant, and staff online are available.
Thank you. I'll note that this mayor and council have had a couple of discussions on this, and we've received very thorough reports. There have been some adjustments made. Even I know that you corrected some things on the agenda book, so I appreciate all of the work that went into getting us here. I'm going to open the floor to my colleagues and see if there are any questions. Councilmember Van Grack.
First and foremost, I want to thank the staff and the applicant. I know that this project has gone through a lot of different manifestations, a lot of different corrections and consultation, both on the hearing, on feedback, on many of the different community members. So I want to thank both the staff and the applicant. I know I've got a representative from the applicant here. I know I've seen representative from the applicants online as well. So to those here and listening, I just want to thank you all because I know this has been a long process. And I also want to commend both the staff and the applicant on working with everybody because I know there have been a number of changes, even through what was initially presented to this mayor and council. There have been a number of changes, both with the plan and to what staff is recommending for our adoption. So I want to thank both the staff and the applicant. I just want to, 2 clarifications with regard, I know we had a discussion on the parking waiver. I assume it's still staff's recommendation with regard to the parking waiver and the larger situation of there being a restaurant, still staff's recommendation for that waiver as part of this adoption?
That's correct.
Okay, and I also want to clarify because I know you added in section 5 of what we'd be adopting, what you talked about with regard to the 30 spaces. Can you just clarify the process of that enforcement? So is that an aspect, because it's using the term shall, that the city can enforce the ultimate owner of those spaces if they are not protecting their rights through the deed that's recognized and the rights that's recognized in and designated in that section 5?
Yes, so the parking spaces shall be reserved in accordance with the agreement that's already in place. The applicant has made clear that they will be working with the Rockshire Association to amend the document potentially in the future to make a bit more clear the enforcement abilities for both parties. We believe again that this condition will also allow the city to be able to enforce the parking spaces, since these specific parking spaces are clearly designated within the site plan.
And this is the exact same enforcement position that Mr. Barker was referring to at the last meeting?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And again, thanks to the applicant and the staff for all your hard work.
Thank you. So just, I know we'll have a few more questions, but staff is recommending that we adopt the proposed resolution, which will constitute approval of the project plan and associated waivers. I know that they'll also then move to site plans. Can you just speak to that process so the listening public is aware?
Of course. So once the applicant is ready to submit their level 2 site plan, and by the way, the zoning ordinance, once a project plan amendment occurs, the zoning ordinance requires submittal of a level 2 site plan. That's the next application that should be submitted. So once the applicant is ready to submit their application, the applicant will hold a post application area meeting where the public will be able to participate and provide further feedback on the proposed application. The application, meanwhile, will be going through the various rounds of review. We're not sure how many rounds of review those will be. It could be 1, it could be 2, maybe more. But of course, we'll review the application. We'll provide the applicant comments after each round of review. Once staff feels comfortable and believe that the applicant meets the requirements of the zoning code and other applicable codes, we will then place it for a public hearing at the Planning Commission, where the Planning Commission will ultimately decide the level 2 site plan. Again, that is also another public hearing where the community may attend, of course, and provide make comments and provide public testimony. So through the process, there will be two separate opportunities to for public engagement and feedback.
Thank you. I wanted to acknowledge that the public knows what the process is and that there'll be more opportunities for input. I recognize that this was a complicated project. There are a number of, between the school was parking there and other associations, and there were some agreements from past that had to be honored. So I want to thank the applicant, staff, as well as all the residents who really came forward in many, many meetings over a couple of years to make this what it is today. I appreciate also the pedestrian and park, and also honoring the residents' desire for having some level of commercial use in that space. So I think a lot of compromise was done to help move this along, and hopefully we can get to a good place. I also just wanted to note, I sent some questions to staff that we do have a fair number of people who have written to us in the past that will be able to share an update when this is approved, so that those who have followed along this project will be able to reach out to. And then at the point of when this project is ready, the current structure is ready for demolition, that there will be work with the community to make sure we're honoring the noise code, and also just giving a heads up to residents in the area. So we can know that demolition does make some noise, but make sure that we're also considering the community in that regard as well.
Absolutely, and we'll work with the applicant where we can to assist them with notifications and whatnot. Yes.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions? And if not, I think we need to have a motion to adopt the proposed resolution. Councilman Valeri.
I would like to move to adopt the proposed resolution approving with conditions project plan application PJT 2024-00017 Rockshire Village Center, an amendment to the Rockshire Plan Development, and approval of several associated waivers.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. It is unanimous. Thank you to everyone who came. Yes, you want to say a few words?
Really quick.
Yeah.
Jason Serino with EY. I just want to thank the Mayor and Council, the Planning Commission, staff, and the community. We've been at, you guys have said this, we've been at it for almost 4 years. EY is proud that we can see this through, honor the commitments we made, and we're excited to keep this development moving forward. So we just want to thank everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good evening.
Okay. We're getting back on time, guys. All right, now we'll be moving to agenda item 11C, which is the adoption of an ordinance as amended to retitle and amend Chapter 5 of the Rockville City Code entitled Buildings and Building Regulations with certain additions, deletions, and amendments, the ICC International Building Code, the ICC Residential Code, and the NFPA 70 National Electric Code, the International Energy Conservation Code, the Fuel Gas Code, the Mechanical Code, the Plumbing Code, the Property Maintenance Code, the Existing Building Code, and by making other minor technical changes. Welcome, Mr. Chris Dempolf and Director Ricky Barker.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. If you can give me just a moment here, we're trying to find the presentation.
Thank you. And while you're doing that, I'll just buy some time. I know that some of us sent some questions. I also know that this must be approved tonight because we have to align with state code. So I'll be looking for direction from staff where there might be additional questions on ways that we can accomplish what we need to do to meet state requirements, and then maybe come back with your suggestions on the two areas that I know some of us have raised.
Yes, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
And
sorry,
I know two, just as you're pulling them up, two that have come forward for the listening public. One was just making sure we're considering the implications of our code allowing tax liens. How can we find a way to ensure that we're not unduly hurting populations that have historically been hurt, not necessarily by Rockville, but by other jurisdictions with using tax liens to take over properties. So that's one question. The other question was there were some changes where there was a streamlining of content related to maintenance of property, particularly in terms of vegetation. So I know there were some questions related to that.
Yes, so regarding the tax liens, that is basically one tool in the toolkit that is identified within the city code. It is not necessarily the first step and would have to be essentially initiated by staff and followed through across multiple divisions and departments. So I believe, and Director Barker can speak to this as well, I believe that while we're working on looking through that section and looking at tax liens as a whole, CPDS would commit to essentially not using that approach until we really revisit this and make sure that we're looking at it through an equitable lens.
Thank you. Is your presentation up, or do you want me to follow up? Okay.
So I'm not sure why it's
all
not
right.
coming up, but
That's all right,
it's only a couple slides this time.
That's okay.
So I can do it actually without the slides if everyone's all right with that.
Thank you. Let's go.
But before I go through that, to the question specifically about vegetation, so the items, looking through them, they were very comprehensive in that section, addressing noxious weeds, invasive species, and all of that. And while those certainly are items that we want to either promote or not promote, the staff from code enforcement are not qualified or trained to identify specific types of plants. And there's some concern as to, basically as to how we would enforce that effectively if the staff are not trained on that, and whether it is reasonable to expect those staff to have that kind of training when they are dealing with the rest of the property maintenance code and a lot of other things that really should probably be elsewhere in the city code. That said, we are looking at bringing additional amendments, specifically Article 14, which is the green building regulations, later this year. And so we have a list of a few items that we want to dig a little deeper on and provide a more thoughtful approach on. At this time, it's recommended that we stick with the streamline language and look at how we can expand it for our later amendments coming forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Valeri.
And I thank everybody and do apologize for the late timing of my inquiries, but with 3 weeks in a row of 900 plus page agendas, it's been a little tough for some of us. I completely, and I said this as much to staff today, I completely appreciate that not everybody has the expertise to be able to recognize or identify, right? But conversely, then it's very tough for individuals who have planted a planned natural space to know whether or not that the person coming up and giving them a warning or whatever doesn't recognize that that's actually a planned landscape. And so it kind of cuts both ways. And as more people are engaged in actually one of our Environmental Excellence Award winners, native gardening, this is going to get more popular, not less. So my concern is with the current streamlined language. I'm not, and I'm going to say this to everybody, I'm not trying to hold up the language. I would almost prefer, and I don't know if this can be done, reverting it to the previous language, because that's what people, at least people in the community, are familiar with. The new streamlined language, I think parts of it could be misconstrued. And so it's almost, the devil sort of thing, like where people kind of know where they're at. And then I think we can have that really full conversation and get the feedback of, everybody on, how they've interacted with code enforcement. And I mentioned it today. This is the growing season, right? Like we're all looking, we're like kind of judging, like, oh, your grass is a little tall, right? But I think this is a good opportunity to engage on the issue. So that was just my thought process. I appreciated a lot of the feedback on, not being so prescriptive because things change. But, at a certain level, there has to be some sort of identification, even of noxious weeds. So, I'm not trying to pile on anyone in particular, or anyone rather, but I just wanted to explain some of my concerns, and they were actually coming from before I got elected as well, and talking to some of my neighbors. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the work that went into this. That's why I felt kind of guilty about raising my questions, and want to thank everybody again, and especially thank you for indulging my very last minute question.
May I say something?
Yes, Mr. Barker.
So I just wanted to kind of see if this addresses some of your concerns, Councilmember Valeria. So if we see high grass as a code enforcement staff, we would notify the owner. And if the owner had planted some of that vegetation you were talking about, then the owner has every opportunity to say, hey, that's not overgrown grass, it's the vegetation I'm trying to achieve. We would bring in our specialists and confirm, and it wouldn't be an issue. So I just wanted to make that clear, that it's not like, we cut down anything. We give the homeowners opportunity to respond, and I wouldn't think a homeowner would say, I'm going to comply with that because that's not tall grass. So I'm not sure. I'm just trying to figure out, is that addressing your concern, or what is it that you're trying to achieve?
I think it goes a little to, if we haven't had this discussion yet on making this part of the property maintenance code reflective of our overall goals, especially around the climate action plan, is it not, and you can tell me this, because I honestly don't know, is it not better to stay, because I know this has to pass, and I'm with you on that, is it not better to stay with the original language, and then we can have the discussion later? Or does this particular section have to be, is part of the needs to change portion of all this building code that like covers a bajillion other things.
So the language in this particular section, I believe we'd be comfortable with retaining the language as currently published. The only thing I would say there is that we don't specifically identify planned natural landscaping, whereas in the new language we do include that.
I don't know that it was in the revised, the consolidated language. I could be wrong.
It was intended to be in the consolidated language.
My colleague, Councilmember Fulton, is telling me that it is. So if that's in, I appreciate that.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
It is, yes.
Apologies. Okay, then I think acknowledging that it goes a long way toward helping this particular situation, just so people know during planting season what they can go and do a certain thing to their yard, and it's going to be okay under the code. So that having been said, I'm cool, and I'm cool with passing this.
Thank you. I wanted to just also, as we talk about this, just thank staff for the incredible work on this. I know we did this last time, but reading it again, it was extremely thorough, and I think it moves Rockville forward, not only beyond the state compliance, but just the kind of city we want to be. So I appreciate all the work too. And also, I will note that there were things that the community has complained about, like in terms of how long it takes to get permits for sheds and how we're addressing that. I appreciate the nuances there to really respond to bottlenecks, if you will, to help the city move forward and make a better process for our residents. So I wanted to appreciate that. And on the tax lien, I will just note, I'm not going to stop this from getting approved. I mentioned that already. I would like to just make sure that there is a policy or something that happens internally where there's not this level of subjectivity, that we're just fair, right? And that I'm concerned about seniors. I'm concerned about people who are lower income or have lower income. I'm concerned about certain communities that have been targeted in the past. I know this group is amazing. We don't know who's going to be here 10 years from now. So we just want to make sure the history shows that this has been used as a tool against certain populations, and I want to make sure that we're thinking that through, and everyone on the team is aware.
Absolutely, and in conversations with Mr. Nick Dumais about this, he said, this is really a much broader thing that we want to take a look at and essentially revise. So the language is basically carried over from what's currently in the property maintenance code. As I said, I think that we feel comfortable as a department committing to not necessarily pursuing that approach while we take a look at the city code and the tax lien tool as a whole. And so we understand, and I certainly I believe that we're all on the same page there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Colleagues, any questions? If not, we can move to adopt. So, Councilmember Jackson.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all the work that you guys have done. I just had a couple of questions, and I know it's late in the process, so suggestions, but obviously I don't want to hold things up. But when I was reading through the packet, you said, or the staff said, it bears acknowledgement that locally the adoption timeline for this code cycle was significantly delayed compared to previous cycles and is now in a compressed timeline for adoption. So I'm curious, I won't want to read the whole paragraph, but I'm trying to understand why the delay and what you're going to do in the next cycle to alleviate the delays and get it to us faster.
Certainly. So on one hand, we received the state's updates much later than in previous cycles, and the primary delay was key staff turnover, and not really a continuity plan established for the project. It was something that I essentially volunteered to take the lead on, realizing that we were going to be fighting against the clock, and we did everything we could to get it to you as soon as we could, and make sure that it still accomplished as many of the goals as we set forth to accomplish, and just really provided you with a balanced approach. So as far as what we're planning on doing for the next round, I already have started review of the 2024 I-codes. I already have looked at what our energy code is going to be moving forward with some of the changes that have occurred within the International Code Council. We're already looking at it, and I have a kind of a plan in place for what the next year or so look like, so that we can get it to you well before we run up against this deadline again.
No, thank you.
Mayor, may I say something as well?
Absolutely, Mr. Barker.
Yeah, Councilmember Jackson. One of the things that he didn't mention, and he probably wouldn't, is that there's, as you know, in the budget process, we asked for another position, and that was due to Chris handling all the commercial plans. And so doing that, keeping up with those things, as well as doing this, it's remarkable that we're here today with this for you. Thank you for funding that position. That will free up Chris's time to be at a higher level working on things like this, and I assure you that will help this tremendously. Thank you.
No, thank you, and I appreciate that. I saw that in the packet, and I just want to ask the question, so thanks for the explanation. So on page 107, 600 exit 6 in the packet, I guess I'm a weather nerd. I grew up in a National Weather Service household, so bear with me. So you say you changed the snow gauge, I guess, from just national to national, Dulles, and BWI. I'm just concerned, I guess. That's a pretty broad range. Usually national gets a little bit of snow. BWI can get significantly more, and Dulles can get more. So, why the change?
So that came as a recommendation from the Department of Public Works, their review of this document, as essentially our code enforcement team relies on the Department of Public Works to make determination on when the snow clearing has to begin or has to be done by. We deferred to them as far as what figures were to be used. I really did not press any further into that, as I have not, qualified necessarily in the area. So, not yet, at least.
No, I was just curious about that. And then on page 109, 680 in the packet, 302.8.6, vehicles for habitation are prohibited. That's fine. I flagged that one just because obviously we're having a homelessness crisis throughout the region, and I want to make sure that if we are putting that in the code and prohibiting that, that we handle those situations with sensitivity and with appropriateness. Defacement of property, 32.9. Again, I'm totally in favor of beefing up our anti-graffiti work. However, we say that the owner is responsible for cleaning the graffiti. And so I don't know if you can answer this or not, but what if they can't repair the graffiti, or they can't afford to repair it? They're elderly, or socioeconomic status is such that they can't afford to clean up graffiti. What then? What are their options?
So I believe one of the things that was discussed previously was, in circumstances where the graffiti is, hateful or otherwise obscene, I believe that the city may take steps to abate that, just in the interest of the public good at that point. In other circumstances, that's something I believe that we would have to work with the property owner on. And I will say, as Mr. Barker said, the first point of contact is generally human interaction here. So our code enforcement staff are going out there talking to the owner of a property and can generally get a sense of if they're going to have difficulty complying with this sort of thing. One of the enhancement requests that we had put in for this year, and I don't, was it funded? And it was funded, was basically a fund to assist with those sorts of things. So we recognize that it can be a barrier to some to comply, and that's certainly, we don't want to have these items continue on just because of an economic hardship in abating the issue.
So, and I know just for the listening public in FY25 for the budget, we just approved a pilot program that would allow some funds for those who need help with code compliance. Right.
Yeah, thank you for that, for pointing that out. And I just have one more thing. 307.1, we talk about the stairs. And I know that it's to make it safe, to make it accessible. We recommend having a handrail on one side. And I would just say, I don't want to hold this up, but I would encourage us to have a handrail on both sides for people that, like me, have trouble working with one side or the other. When I go downstairs or upstairs, it's a little bit tough sometimes with a handrail only on one side. So, I don't want to hold it all, definitely, but I just want to say, it would be a lot better to have handrails on both sides. Thank you.
Certainly, and that's this is something that is carried from the base text of the code, and it is something that we could certainly include that on our list for discussion as far as items that we may amend at a future date.
Thank you. I will note for many residents who have talked to us about shopping carts in their community, there's a piece of language in here about shopping carts and the businesses having to move them within a required period of time. I did ask the question, you will be in communication with those businesses so that they know what the new rules are.
Yes, they have been notified that this is something that has been proposed and that citations will be issued and fines and whatnot.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson and Councilmember Valeri.
I have another question, and it's related to the shopping carts. No. So because I think we've talked about it a million times, as well as the city manager. There's a gentleman up on Shady Grove and Goody and Gaither who takes carts from the businesses nearby and pushes them around, and he then leaves them. So I'm just concerned because if we have people taking carts and then leaving them, are we saying then that the business is responsible for getting the carts back, or okay? If that's what we're doing, then that's fine.
Yeah.
I think that there would be some judgment on, when there is an unhoused person who's using it to store their personal effects. The challenge we've seen in certain neighborhoods, it's all over the city, but one example is we cleaned up 40 to 50 carts in the Lincoln Park community. And sometimes the carts are put on resident front yards. They did not use it, they did not bring it, but it just kind of gets dumped on their yards, and then over time there's accumulation of trash. So that's been part of the challenge of getting those carts removed. Several of the faith-based institutions, the community center, and neighborhood residents and some of us have gone out and tried to help clean it up. But I think that is the larger issue that's trying to be addressed. On that side, I do think we need to consider in the future just ways to get people foldable shopping carts, because that's the issue. But at least from a business perspective and the loitering that's happening in the communities that people have been complaining about, I think this will help. All right, Councilmember Larry.
Yes, and I concur as one of the neighborhoods with a shopping cart issue. I think that's something that will go a long way. I'm hopeful that there is discretion used because, like my colleague, unfortunately, there is a big situation with unhoused individuals, not just in Rockville, but everywhere. And there are a lot of people in the city who are utilizing a grocery cart or shopping cart for essentially their home. And I would hate to see this used as a punitive way towards someone that is in need of other services. So I'm hopeful that we can get to that place. I had forgotten my question. Probably just, I did want to say, I think it was something that Barry said, but overall, I do believe that Mr. Depp-Wolf, you deserve a gold star for not only like going above and beyond, but balancing this with other work that is no joke. I think it's tremendous. So thank you sincerely, especially as somebody who was a pain in the butt. So thank you.
I certainly appreciated the questions, and I have to say thank you. Honestly, the questions that I've received have been very thoughtful. It shows me that you guys have really actually read the material I gave you, which I know was a lot. So I just really appreciate that, and just especially hearing from so many members up here that you trust staff, and it's clearly not a blind trust of staff. It's just very refreshing to hear that. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Dr. Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question. The green code part is coming back later, December? Cool. Thanks.
Correct.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions, or are we ready to move to adopt? Councilmember Van Graff. Van Graff.
That's all right. It's getting old half. I'm responding to whichever you go with these days. I just want to echo, because as every single time you've brought this before us, you've had specific questions on areas, and not only have you addressed directly just about every single one, but you've thoughtfully answered some of the concerns. And I know that you also did briefings with the members of this mayor and council. So I want to echo what my colleague is saying, that you and your whole department, Mr. Barker as well, you guys deserve a lot of kudos of getting this together and being so responsive to a body that, as you note, was reading it thoroughly. So I just want to echo what my colleagues were saying.
Wonderful. Thank you. With that, I know what you would need from us tonight.
Yep.
Do we have a motion to adopt the ordinance as amended? Councilmember Shaw.
Before I make a motion, I just want to echo my colleagues and say thank you for making our future infrastructure more equitable and more accessible. So I move to adopt an ordinance as amended to retitle and amend Chapter 5 of the Rockville City Code entitled Buildings and Buildings Regulation.
Do we have a second? Dr. Miles.
I'll second, very happily.
Thank you. I think Councilmember Fulton really wants to echo the comments as well, to say thank you.
Is that what? I think this is awesome. Thank you.
I'm learning a little bit of mind reading up here. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All right. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. I gotcha. We are now moving on to agenda item 11D. I did have a chance to connect with Mr. Dawson and Mr. Simino about this section. So this is the discussion and instructions on the Town Square Management Agreement. We gave very specific instructions to staff to come back with, to move forward with an agreement, to move from the events from not having 14 to actually going all the way to 17, as well as there was one other key item.
You confirmed the one-year agreement?
The one-year agreement, and that separately you're going to go and work on an agreement for Gibb Street. So
Correct,
I
a
know you'll be
multi-year
moving this
agreement on
forward.
Gibb Street.
And I think that with that, and the work that we've previously done, I know the team will be working to get that agreement in place and has already negotiated, so we can move on from this agenda item unless you have anything else to add.
Just, Madam Mayor, this is on the agenda to come back on consent on June 10th.
Wonderful. And Morgard has been alerted about this timing.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Colleagues, that is a quick agenda item. All right, let's go. All right, so the next is agenda item 11E. And this is the discussion and instructions on the Rockville Economic Development, Inc. agreement. Similarly, we gave very specific instructions to staff to go back and make some edits. Mr. Simino sent some feedback. I wanted to just see if there needs to be discussion on that. Specific feedback from Mr. Simino, and then we can also move to, there were one or two specific items that relates to the membership of mayor and council on the board and maybe proposing a liaison status. So let's deal with your edits first. Mr. Simino, can you please
Yes.
update us on the status of that?
Madam Mayor, my email contained a few things. One, the city attorney had asked me for input on attachment A. I provided that. I have conferred with Cindy Rivard on that, so I believe she's going to be obviously in agreement with him. He also asked for me to fill in a few blanks, which I provided. And then there was a few other things that I called out that I thought were agreed to in the session, and there was one or two other recommendations in that. If you want to go through it, we can.
I think we're good with, leaving the board thing last. Are there any points of clarification that need to be made for the city attorney's office and the city manager's office that you would like mayor and council to weigh in on? Because I think it largely represents our previous discussion. So please let us know if there's any strategic difference that we need to weigh in
on. No, we don't.
Okay, great. All right, so Mr. Dawson had shared some feedback with this mayor and council on the guidance on ex officio versus liaison. I know some of us have said we're okay with liaison. I just want to get the feedback of the body on whether you're okay with moving forward with the CAO's recommendation on liaison. Okay, we have thumbs up. The one piece that I did note in my email that there was some additional language added about this will be moved annually to appoint the liaison. That is not how it was in the previous agreement. I had just recommended that we strike that phrase. And the mayor and council has its processes for doing that, and the previous agreement just said the mayor and council appoints a liaison. So I would appreciate that indulgence from my colleagues just to align with our practice. Okay, so thumbs up, or are we good? Okay, we're good. All right, so I think we have all the key items that we need to discuss on this item. One thing I did want to check is the current agreement is listed as confidential. Do you need anything from us to move to now share it with Ms. Rivard?
I believe that after we update the agreement, we can share it with Reddy and get her agreement. She'll have to take it to her board. Her board meets this Thursday in June 27th. So this is also scheduled to come back to Mayor and Council on June 10th, and may have to come back before the Reddy board approves it, but they can do it on June 27th. But we will get Cindy Rivard's at least eyes on it to get some feedback to make sure she's going to be recommending her board in agreement.
I think that would be fantastic to allow her to see it. Great. Councilmember Valeri.
And I defer to Councilmember Jackson if he wants to roll with this, but I wasn't sure if We had gotten an answer to Councilmember Jackson's question regarding the annual joint meeting of the Ready Board and Mayor and Council. And I don't mean to put you on the spot if you need to follow up on that, but I don't know if Councilmember Jackson got an answer directly to you that didn't include us. I would be interested in the answer to that.
Sorry, I thought that this body said we were interested in the joint meeting.
Exactly.
So that would be included.
And Ms. Rivard is on. If we want to ask her, she has more history than me,
Yeah.
if she agrees with that. So Cindy, if you can you comment on that?
Yeah, and I will just for the history, we raised, Councilmember Jackson raised it. I think Ms. Rivard had previously said that hadn't been activated before, but absolutely was welcome to do that. So, Ms. Rivard, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is Cindy Rivard, the CEO of Rockville Economic Development. We have not had a formal joint meeting of the board and the mayor and council in the past. And we also think that that would be a wonderful idea. I know that you have talked about in your retreat having a work session, and I think that would be an ideal opportunity in fiscal year 25 to meet this goal.
Wonderful. So I think there's guidance from the body. I'm seeing shaking heads, so we're good.
We will add that also when we update this version.
Thank you for raising that, council members. All right, so I think we're good on this agenda item as well. Okay, and then for the listening public, we are moving forward with a 3-year agreement here with annual funding updates. Okay. Any other comments or questions from staff for us? No. Okay.
No, Madam Mayor.
We can now move on to agenda item 13, future agenda. And our next meeting is on June 3rd. And if anyone has comments on other meetings, I know that we haven't gotten the, well, we will be getting the latest future meetings piece. So if we can get that before June 3rd, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Sorry. I thought he had his hand raised.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Councilmember Bank, did you have?
If you could have changed my name to Jackson to make it easier, I'm happy to do so.
It is too late. It is too late. I saw your hand go up.
It's after 10:30. You're allowed to mix up different council members. Madam Mayor and colleagues, one of the things that I know has been coming up a lot in our community forums, we've discussed at our retreats, and that's housing and rent stabilization. I know that we've talked about it coming up. We've seen the upcoming agenda. I notice it's not there. I'd ask my colleagues that it might be time for us to see what information we can get from staff and put the issue before the body so we can have a full-fledged discussion on these issues.
Councilmember Valeri.
Again, it's, somewhat late. I'm under caffeinated. But I feel like I thought I saw that on the mock agenda.
Future agendas.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
mock agenda.
on the mock agenda. Yeah, it's on the mock agenda.
Well, that's the affordable housing presentation. However,
the work session.
Yeah, but he's specifically asking about the rent stabilization.
And so that was my question. I thought we were having this as a single. Well, it's a work session. I guess it would be titled differently. I recall that we wanted to have a housing work session wherein part of that would be the panoply, because I had on my questions, we need to have that discussion on modernizing or making the MPDU program more equitable. So, and I think we need to do that sooner rather than later. So I guess my question here is for our next meeting, what was staff envisioning for that particular discussion? And then maybe I'm just wasting oxygen.
Staff, please respond.
Yes, Madam Mayor, there's 3 separate agenda items. The one on 6.3 is affordable housing. It's an overview of all the affordable housing options and a primer on the entire thing. The second one is on July 8th. That is specifically on rent stabilization. That is how the mayor and council directed us. And the third one is the email I sent out recently that we would begin looking at the chapter of the code on moderately priced dwelling units, and that would come in the summer after that July 8th one, and we would begin working on that, which would take up all the questions on the process and procedures, et cetera, on moderately priced dwelling units.
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up to that?
I did have a
Okay,
follow-up.
and then I see Councilmember
Just-
Shaw, and then Councilman Van Grack. Did I see your hand up?
Super
Okay.
quick follow-up, and thank you to to Councilmember Van Jackson for helping me out on my memory thing. I would just put forward to my colleagues, especially given the landscape right now, that we move more quickly on the MPDU discussion. Given that there are some things that we need to have a discussion on.
Thank you. Councilmember Shaw.
I also agree with Councilmember Valeri, and I actually was anticipating that this affordable housing presentation would include, on June 3rd, would include MPDUs, since MPDUs is our number one existing way of providing affordable housing. I assume that MPDUs would be in our next meeting, and then there would be the rent stabilization discussion later. But that's what I was assuming.
So
that is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
However, it is not intended to go through the code piece by piece, et cetera. So it's going to talk about that as a tool and that as an affordable housing option, but it's not going to go through. So I'm trying to make sure I'm getting what Councilmember Valeri is talking about fixing the code. That is not included in that. That's going to be a detailed work through.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, there are things that my colleagues have seen I've raised on questions on the MPDU rental program, but also the MPDU ownership program. We have several properties that are in development right now, and I have questions like, where are our workshops? How are we cultivating our list? Those are things I'm hoping that we'll have some answers to, or at least be able to raise and discuss. And then, I also agree that it might be an opportunity to signal some of the changes that we'd like to see made in the code, so that when you come back on the code and staff is working on that, you can have input from the mayor and council on strategically where we're headed.
Certainly, if the mayor and council wish to sniggle on some of the bigger items, that would be wonderful in the discussion.
Great. Councilmember Shaw?
Yeah, and I also just want to stress too, I recognize the suggestion to change the code, but I think there's a lot of things in our current code that are really good and that protect our residents. And so I'm looking forward to June 3rd to talk about that.
And there are things that we can make better. Yes. All right. Any other comments? Councilmember Van Grack? Did you want to speak to, does that answer your question?
The answer is yes and no. To some extent, let me ask that. I know we've got some things on the agenda, but can we push up and have the rent stabilization discussion on that same day, or is it won't allow it schedule-wise?
Staff is not prepared.
Okay.
The staff, we have a staff of 2, essentially.
Thank you. And I know we're making a hire for the new director. Thought you'll have more staff soon.
We're in negotiations as we speak.
Thank you. Councilmember Valeri.
So I did want to throw out there, especially given the public hearing this evening, and at least some thoughts that have been ruminating in my head, I thought it might be helpful for a future agenda item to perhaps have Ms. Bashiri come back, kind of explain more about the historic designation criteria. I feel like we got kind of dropped into the deep end on this particular issue, and it might be helpful. I just want to throw it out there because it may be something that we might look at, maybe we don't, maybe it's perfect, but Just wanted to throw that idea out to my colleagues that it might be a good future agenda item, not mock agenda, but future agenda item.
Thank you. I had a question also about the MPDU agreement that we have been discussing. So I believe we're going to try to get a meeting scheduled before the end of this week. Do we need to build in anything else for that? Is that feasible? And maybe the comment is we need to maybe do a doodle poll to get that on the agenda for this week. But I know that there's some concern about the wait until June 3rd. So can we address that? Okay.
We can even accommodate virtual if we need to. It should be a very quick item once we get agreement with Saul and get it together.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember Fulton.
I think this is the right time. I have a question for future agendas, and I know I saw it on a list somewhere, but I can't get into my account right now. Like, when do we expect to hear from the Board of Supervisors on elections? It was like 6 months ago that we asked the community how they felt about certain things, and it's been 6 months. I'm just wondering when we're going to have that.
June 10th.
Beautiful, thank you.
And
You'll get the transmittal before then, but June 10th, they'll be here to present to the mayor and council.
have they concluded their investigation?
Yes, they have.
All of them?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Jackson.
So just following up on Council Member Valeri's comments, remember Thursday, May the 30th, the Historic District Commission is having the ABCs of historic preservation. So you and any member of the public watching can go there and learn about it.
All right, it is now 10:46. Anything else on future agendas? All right. Old new business. Councilmember Valeri.
I have two items. Please don't throw things at me. One is I'd really like us to look at, as a body, to look at our crosswalk request standard. Right now, I feel as if it is beyond onerous. Crosswalks are a bare minimum thing to install as far as, safety measures. And so we have two requests from the community, one from Lincoln Park in front of the community center and one from East Rockville along a walking path to Maryvale. And it seems to me that there are a lot of barriers for what I think is a very bare minimum safety measure. So I wanted to put that forward to my colleagues. I know that the standard is within, I think it's pedestrian master plan. I don't think it's Vision Zero. One of those two plans to look at this. But as of right now, for us to have to do a traffic study or pedestrian count to get a crosswalk installed by a elementary school, to me, is an unnecessary burden. So I just wanted to throw that out to my colleagues as something that maybe we can discuss or.
Yeah, I will just say, you've seen my request on the crosswalks, and I repeatedly hear them at community meetings. So I know specifically the Lincoln Park one and the Maryvale one is something that it seems like it's just paint, but I know that there's some safety things that you're considering. However, part of Vision Zero is acknowledging that people are using the pathways they're using and finding ways to make that safer. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that.
Mr. Woods is on also, but we are looking at that. But one thing to consider is when a crosswalk is not at a controlled intersection where there's a stop sign or there is a traffic signal, that there are some significant issues they have to look at for safety. And so when you have we call them mid-block crossings, there is extra caution paid there because they're not always, there's an opposite hand to that of safety to look at because cars need to stop there and sight distances, et cetera, so that there is extra caution versus at an intersection that's controlled. That's much easier. So Jim, do you want to add to that?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. I apologize for not having my camera available this evening. I did want to acknowledge the two requests that we have received recently, both at the Lincoln Park Community Center and close to Maryvale Park along First Street. We are in process of reviewing our initial response, and we should have a response to both the residents who have raised it and to the mayor and council very shortly. That would include some additional analysis from what was done previously. And I also want to acknowledge the point that Councilmember Valeri made. The pedestrian master plan did acknowledge that we were going to review our crosswalk guidelines. And in fact, Brian Barnett Woods has already begun that process. We received a grant to help fund a consultant study to do a review of our pedestrian crosswalk guidelines. And we are about to start that, and we expect that those guidelines will include some of the Vision Zero principles that we've all been discussing and put it into policy standards that we can then follow consistently so that we are evaluating these requests fairly, equitably, but also safe and consistent manner, and not just putting crosswalks because somebody has asked for them, but that there is a reasonable and justifiable standard that we're following when we evaluate them. That's also more modern than what we have previously been doing.
Thank you for that. I'll also, since we're on the topic, just raise the issue of bus stops again. I know that we've been replacing and putting up bus shelters, which is fantastic. We also need to make sure that crossing them are safe. I know that's particularly acute on Veers Mill, so some of these, we need to work on, but that is something that is ongoing, and we need to make sure that we're making progress on that. I would also note that I've mentioned this to the team before, but we had a student here from St. Mary's. Actually, their class has concerns about the mid-block crossing bus stop that is right in front of their school, and they've actually commented about how high school students they see crossing there all the time. It is right over a bend. They would really love to see a flashing beacon there. So I think particularly in their areas near schools and community centers, if we could just prioritize those areas to make sure that we're looking at safety, particularly on the mid-block crossing situation. Councilman Valeri.
I had a second one, but crosswalks got all popular. And I had forgotten that that DPW had gotten that grant for the crosswalk consultant. So I'm excited about that. But I think we definitely need to invest in being responsive. My second item for old new business is, y'all are gonna think I'm like Jill OneNote here, but having stared at the vegetation code for so long, I just realized when I was waiting out front of City Hall the other day that we don't have native plants in front of City Hall. Like, I was reviewing and looking at things. So I'm not saying to remove anything, but could we consider, much like solar and Madam Mayor, if we could consider shifting to native plants in front of City Hall? I would love that.
How about staff just shares their opinion on that, and then we can respond at a future time?
That's fine.
Okay. And I know there's a bigger discussion on native planting in general, which we're trying to move towards.
I just wanted to say it.
I appreciate that. Colleagues, it is 10:53. I just wanted to look around and see if there's anything else you'd like to discuss before we have a motion to adjourn. All right. Anyone want to make a motion? Who wants to hang out here? Councilmember Shaw.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Councilmember Fulton? All right. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. All right. We'll see everyone at Hometown Holidays. Thank you so much, and Memorial Day Parade.